Okay, this is good. So LA is a trickle coming to an event type town. They just trickle in. So we're going to start in about 2 minutes. Let me ask you while we're waiting, it's my general question, who's here at the expo for the first time? Excellent. Who here has been to the expo before? Great. How many people know about medical freedom? All right, all of us. We're really so honored to be presenting you the top true heroes of these ladies and gentlemen who are fighting for medical freedom and have been for a long time, at the risk of much reputation, their lives, their security, and they continue to do it time after time. So we're really happy to get them all in one room together. All right, so what we're going to do is go to 4:30, and then we're going to go to the back of the room, and we're going to do a meet and greet. You can talk to some of these people. Some of them have books they're going to sign and sell. Unfortunately, Dale has to leave at 4:30, so you might want to grab him and then let him go. Is that okay? So I think we're going to start now. We'll do questions after. I'm so thrilled, seriously, this is such an amazing, illustrious lineup. And what gets me even more pleasure is I get to introduce our moderator, Kelly Gallagher, who I've done some wonderful up and down, some very challenging events. We started off at VAX together. I don't need to go to the podium. We started off at VAX together, a little known film. From catastrophe to cover up that went over like hundreds of countries around the world with Dell, one of the producers, and Kelly and I being involved, and it was an amazing rock and roll show. So that was our beginning. So let me just do a little brief intro, and then Kelly will introduce our panelists. Kelly is an award-winning filmmaker, writer, poet, international health speaker, and patient advocate. She's a 5-time cancer survivor. She's powered by her 6th pacemaker. She's had 120 blood transfusions. She's had a bone marrow transplant, and she actually has residing inside her heart and her aortic pig valve replacement. She's proof positive of how a 5-time cancer thriver can beat the odds and make lemon out of lemonades. Lemonade out of lemons. So she has real-life experience in health and wellness, treatment, recovery, and survival. She is an advocate of merged medicine between alternative and traditional. She's navigated both protocols for almost 40 years. And here's how she recovered. Clean food, positive thoughts. She's the most positive person I know. If you ask her how she is, she goes terrific, no matter what. She says, I am terrific. Yeah. So Kelly was given a 1-year death sentence 25 years ago, and she's still here. So this former NBC executive considers every day of her life a blessing, and she lobbies for non-toxic health treatments and protocols, and produces films and events to expose the truth about wellness. So, ladies and gentlemen, Kelly Gallagher.
Thank you, Donna Schumann. And I want to thank Donna Schumann from the bottom of my heart. She has been working tirelessly on this project and this symposium, and we have brought together for you the rock stars of wellness and the rock stars of freedom, of medical freedom. These people have done more than I could ever tell you in their bios. They have been relentless in their protection of our rights, the rights that you don't even know you have. While we're sitting around eating potato chips and drinking a beer, you're losing rights you don't even know, because there are people in all of the state capitals and the federal government that are very busy lobbying and writing laws that we don't know about until it's too late. So it is my honor and privilege to tell you who's on the panel and introduce them. We have Sean Buckley, who flew in at the last minute from Canada for us. He is a Canadian constitutional lawyer who for 30 years has been fighting for our health rights. Donna just met him, and it just worked out, and we are so blessed to have him. Mr. Buckley has defended more dietary supplement companies against Health Canada charges than any other lawyer. He was the lawyer for Stefan's family featured in the recent movie, The Big Picture. This was a test case to scare parents to vaccinate. Mr. Buckley is founder of the Natural Health Product Protection Association, which is Canada's leading protector of our access to natural remedies. He's the founder and lead counsel for Canada's National Citizens Inquiry. The National Citizens Inquiry held 24 days of hearings in 8 cities and called 305 witnesses. The focus was on the COVID-19 pandemic. Lay witnesses and experts testified. In Canada, the National Citizens Inquiry is referred to as the Trucker Convoy 2.0. Mr. Buckley called one of the other panel members, Stephen Kirsch, as a witness at the National Citizens Inquiry. So here we have both of them. Awesome. In Canada, natural health products are under attack, like all over the world. Mr. Buckley drafted a private member's bill currently before Parliament aimed at taking down a recent change to the law that threatens our products. So we are so happy to have you. John Buckley, thank you for coming. Steve Kirsch, well, he's a rock star. Steve Kirsch, in the early days of the pandemic, has billions of dollars poured into the hunt for novel treatments and vaccines. He's a veteran Silicon Valley entrepreneur who jumped in and did what he's always done. He's looking for the underdog. Since making a fortune as the founder of InfoSeek, an early search engine that was the Google of its day, Kirsch has spent tens of millions of dollars fighting for us and fighting for humanity's biggest threats. He prefers iconic classic approaches, whether by directing funding asteroid detection or advocating for nuclear power to combat global warming. Steve Kirsch, in March of 2020, when all the pandemic happened, settled on the idea of searching for COVID treatments in the pre-existing pharmacopoeia. The premise made sense. Most experts were predicting vaccines would take years, while finding helpful drugs with known safety profiles could shortcut the approval process. Well, so with little government funding for such work, Steve founded the COVID-19 Early Treatment Fund, CETF, putting in $1 million of his own money and bringing in donations from Silicon Valley. That's why he's a rock star. So his Substack is dedicated to challenging the status quo, and we are so happy to have you here, Steve Kirsch. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Amazing. Lee Dundas, I got to see you speak yesterday. Off the chain. Off the chain. This woman has done more for us than we have ever realized. I'm going to read you her bio, but it has, you know, it's like not even the Cliff Notes. Recently, America has obviously faced some of the most unprecedented times ever seen. Here and now, we are seeing the erosion of our country's fundamental values and civil liberties. The good news, we have the power to change it. And Lee Dundas is one of those people here to do it. Heroes are not made in times of peace, and the reality is that we are the heroes upon whom we've been waiting for. Armed with information, trained with skills, convicted of courage, and believing without cease that our children in this planet deserve more, we will see yet victory overcome these injustices. Winning the war and freedom does not depend on the next lawsuit or knight in shining armor. Her methodology involves all of us. We have to do something. It depends on average citizens everywhere deploying fifth-generation skills to vanquish the enemy at our gate. And we all can do it, inspired by you. Lee Dundas, we are so happy to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. I want to say one more thing. She's a human rights attorney and is known all over the world for the fiery speeches. So we're only going to get the Cliff Notes today, but thank you again. Okay. All right, how many people don't know Del Bigtree? There you go. I'll read this, but you guys know so much more too. Del's career as an Emmy Award, Del's career as an Emmy Award-winning producer of the CBS talk show The Doctors changed his life profoundly when he produced the documentary Vax, as Donna was telling you. It was credited with igniting the revolution against pharmaceutical tyranny around the world. This film is still going. It's still going. It created Vax 2, it created a Vax bus, it created a Vax tour. it created an unvax versus vax study, and Dell went on to inspire more with his TV internet show, The High Wire, which is amazing. Every Thursday, if you're not watching it, you should be. It reaches out to over 100 million views. Not that he wasn't busy enough. He started a nonprofit called the Informed Consent Action Network, ICANN. ICANN also has done more for us than we ever will know about. Relentless, again. With Aaron Siri, they have filed so many lawsuits. I'm going to let him tell you what's going on, but it's like, when do you sleep?
Yawning a lot.
ICANN created worldwide investigations into drug and vaccine fraud that have already resulted in winning multiple lawsuits against the U.S. government agencies. Our wonderful Health and Human Services, which is in charge of NIH and CDC and FDA. Yeah, Dell has gone up against all of them with Aaron Siri. It's awesome, and he'll tell you about it. He's best known for his powerful speeches, and he will not have the opportunity to tell all of it today because we only have a short amount of time for all of them. So I'm so honored to have Dell Bigtree on the panel. Thank you, Dell. Another one of my heroes is here. Dr. Brian Ardis. You rocked my world a few times. I got to hear you speak the other day, and I'm not sure which things you're gonna talk about today because you have done so many things also. From hanging out with Dell. We're all just hanging out. Dr. Brian Ardis is the founder and CEO of Ardis Labs. He was the first doctor in America to blow the whistle on the drug I can't pronounce, remdesivir. Remdesivir. That was good. I mean, I can say that. Remdesivir. Hope none of y'all got it. This non-approved FDA drug that Anthony Fauci made a protocol in all hospitals, which we all know is literally killing people. He's also been a pioneer in researching and uncovering the origins of COVID-19. I saw him in Watch the Water, and it was eye-opening. I'm going to let him tell you about the venoms and the solution, which is something, both things are things we would have never thought about. Thank you so much, Dr. Ardis, for being here. And another paradigm shifter who started a while ago has written many, many, many books about health and wellness and pH. And Dr. Robert Young has a so happy you're here also. He has a 3-book series right now, Truth versus Deception, Liberty versus Tyranny. He says, just as the truth will set us free, deception and falsehoods will enslave us. And they have. He believes that if we want to remain free, we must all learn the truth about what's going on around us. And I would say that is absolutely true. We are responsible for what we accept as truth, and we cannot outsource the responsibility in the media, academia, government, business, science, medicine, public health, Hollywood, professional sports, or even the church. We are responsible to learn the truth for both ourselves and our children. Why would anyone want to leave this to anyone else? That's what Dr. Robert Young says. He has a specialty in cellular nutrition, biochemistry, and microbiology. Dr. Young has devoted his life to researching the true causes of disease, subsequently developing the new biology to help people balance their life. Thank you, Dr. Young, for being here. Oh, wow, what a panel.
Why does it say Patron on your... We got tequila up here apparently somewhere.
Scratch that one out because the new tequila is called El Cristiano. Sorry, honey. Yes, we do have a new tequila company. All organic. Hey, there's no sugar, no added sugar, no added additives, no colorings. if you're gonna drink, I highly recommend that you drink my guy's El Cristiano tequila. There. That was my shameless plug. Chris Schaefer's in the house. Thank you, honey. So I would like all of these amazing people who could actually talk for 6 hours with no break and still not be done with what they need to tell you. I'd like them all to start with their story, why are you here, what are you doing, and what's going on. And I'd like to limit to 15 minutes, and if somebody can help me time that, and then we'll get to questions and we'll go on to the next thing. Who would like to start?
15 minutes total or each?
Huh?
Total, right?
Who wants to
Okay, I'll start.
All right, go. Dr. Brian Artis.
Okay, I'm sorry. So, my name is Dr. Brian Artis, and the reason why I'm here is because you were going to show up, and all of humanity's been lied to. And so, if there's a group of people, and they reach out to my wife, Jane, and say, hey, we'd like you to come, I show up. And that's why I'm here. So, God bless you all. Hope you enjoy the show.
Is that all you're going to tell us, or you want to tell us what you? Yeah.
Is it 15 per person?
Yeah.
Brian, we got.
You want to tell us what you're doing? Tell us. Huh? An hour. We have 3 hours, and I have 6 people.
Start talking, boy.
All right, Russell. Yeah.
All right, okay, hold up.
We need 5. You want to go 5 minutes? Okay, give us the mini version of what you're up to, what's going on, what do people need to know?
Okay, so I was asked to come here and actually do a presentation called The Antidote. If y'all didn't watch it, go and download the whole PowerPoint presentation at thedrartisshow.com if you'd like. It actually was like 353 slides. I am
Got through 263 of them.
I am not a blow smoke up your ass and hope you believe it kind of guy. I am a show and tell guy. So if you'd like to know why it is that there are 3 different countries who did DNA testing and confirmed that the spike proteins of COVID and every single symptom of COVID was caused by venoms from 36 different creatures, you want to go look at Carlo Brogna's DNA testing in 3 different countries in June of 2020. And I can actually show you his actual published paper that involved Germany and Italy labs. They did 3 different types of testing. And if you know what these are, they'll mean something. If you don't, it just sounds like it's really important. So they did what's called mass spectrometry, liquid chromatography, and something doing ion fractioning. And they had to send that to another country because they wanted to be able to confirm in the blood and feces of only COVID-19 positive patients. He had isolated 36 different venom proteins, 20 different snakes, 15 different cone snails in the ocean, and 1 starfish from the ocean called the crown of thorn starfish venom. Now I'd like to ask you, and anyone on this panel actually, how did venom proteins from 36 different creatures that include 16 different creatures that live on the ocean floor, I'd like to know how every single COVID-19 patient in multiple cities in Italy living on land got venom from 16 different animals on the ocean floor's venoms confirmed to be in their blood and in their feces of only the COVID-19 positive patients. Can anybody explain it to me? Okay, well, the only way you can confirm that actually is with DNA testing. Now, I don't know about y'all, but if you've ever watched Forensic Files, the Dateline episode, 48 Hours, and you watch these stories of people who have died, and they're given some reason for death, or it's unknown, or natural cause. Haven't you seen where they'll actually exhume the bodies later to do some kind of toxicology testing to see if there's some other reason why they died? And they'll identify arsenic or something as the cause. And then you'll see rape victims and murder victims, and later, decades later, they can do DNA analysis and actually free people who were incorrectly incarcerated, and then incarcerate the people who were actually found guilty through something we believe to trust called DNA testing. Anybody who wants to ignore the venom's relationship to COVID wants to ignore DNA testing, so you have to just throw it out the window. 3 different countries, not one, and I'm not the DNA expert. I'm the chiropractor who just happened to read their studies and happened to understand English and articulate it back to you. They confirmed from January of 2020 in China that 2 snakes were the origin of COVID, the cobra and the crate snake. In April of 2020, French researchers took the spike protein S1 and S2 that's on the virus of COVID, supposedly, ran their DNA sequences, and they were identical to two snake venom's neurotoxic venom proteins called cobra toxin and bungarotoxin. Two words I'd never seen in my whole life. The French researchers who are DNA experts said this finally answers the question why smokers, now you have to understand this is 4 years ago. This is April of 2020. 4 years ago, they said, this finally explains every symptom of COVID. These venom proteins cross the blood-brain barrier and attack nicotine receptors that control your diaphragm's ability to contract and your heart's ability to beat. This is how venomous creatures kill you. You can't breathe, and you'll become hypoxic. But then they said something amazing. They said, you know what's unique about these nicotine receptors that they specifically target? Nicotine binds to those receptors 30 times more powerfully than these venoms do, and this finally explains in April of 2020 why smokers appear immune to COVID. That was 4 years ago. Do you know what their last statements were? We plead with all governments around the world to fund and conduct nicotine agent studies to prevent and end the pandemic. That was 4 years ago. All right, so this was a world I did not want to know. I didn't want to know anything about this crap. I was known as the run death is near guy, the remdesivir guy, and I was totally fine just keeping you out of hospitals because I don't trust them.
But now we can all start smoking.
I didn't want to know anything. Actually, you can. If you get organic tobacco, you'll be just fine. Oh, anybody in the audience, just so you know, because I cannot tell you how far this goes. Any of you guys, this goes like from COVID to right now, like right now. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of a drug called Ozempic. How many of you know somebody on Ozempic? How many of you in this room are on Ozempic? Okay. All right, so I just want you guys to know something. This company was actually, I don't know if y'all know this. This drug called Ozempic is called a GLP-1 drug. This is significant because it's everything related to COVID. This drug is called a GLP-1 drug. In the last 5 years, it's been approved by the FDA in the United States, but it's actually created and manufactured in Europe. Do you know that not a single country in Europe has approved it for any European citizen because it's too toxic and too deadly? And do you know which country is the only country buying it and approving it for their citizens? The United States of America. Do you know that Novo Nordisk, which is the company that makes it, is now the highest revenuing, money-making company in Europe in the last 5 years for selling Ozempic and Wegovy to Americans? Do you know that drug has a black box warning to cause thyroid cancer of every kind within 12 months of taking it? Do you know that that drug also is published to cause acute kidney failure, chronic liver failure, and chronic kidney failure? And CNN just published hundreds of thousands of people around the world are now paralyzed because of this drug, their stomachs and intestines, for years. Do you know everybody who's injecting Ozempic into their body once a week, you're injecting Gila monster lizard venom directly into your body? And now I'd like to ask you, how many of you out there believe you're overweight and diabetic because you're Gila monster venom deficient? Anybody? How many of you have ever heard of lisinopril? How many of you have heard of any drug that ends with pril that they give you for high blood pressure since 1981? How many of you know you're swallowing snake venom from a Dracarys viper snake in Brazil? And how many of you know that every venom on Earth since 1956, because of Dr. Stanley Cohen, he discovered that when you subject a mammal to venom, it will cause turbo cancers. And do you know that in 1956, he said you can create a turbo cancer in the brain called a glioblastoma in less than 72 hours? Do you know what the #1 young adult diagnosed brain tumor is right now since the COVID-19 vaccines came out? Glioblastomas. Represents half of all of them, actually.
Is it in all the vaccines?
Yep, and do you know that in 2021, people took cobra toxin in labs where we were being locked down and they injected them. I showed this yesterday or Saturday. Do you know that when they injected cobra toxin, which was found to be the spike protein of COVID, they can create a glioblastoma in any mammal while you were on lockdown in labs in less than 72 hours? And then they turned around and in 72 hours they reversed and dissolved it with nicotine only. Did you hear that the UK, the United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia now have agendas nationally to get nicotine products out of circulation by the year 2030 for all citizens. And did you hear Joe Biden 2 months ago said we're going to reduce? I'm going to be the first president ever to reduce nicotine amounts in tobacco products for America. Not anything else, just nicotine. Nicotine was and should be considered one of the greatest antidotes to this pandemic you have ever seen. And just so you know, in January 2023 is my last statement. January 2023, peer-reviewed approved research paper. Did you know they have a combined long hauler COVID symptom list of 21 different diseases caused by a mild case of COVID and lingering symptoms for up to 2 years after having a mild case? It includes insomnia, new onset of diabetes, high blood pressure being diagnosed since having COVID. It includes loss of taste and smell. It includes exercise-induced asthma, all kinds of stuff. Do you know that in January of last year, they said 2 researchers in 2 different countries found out that COVID was 2 snake venom proteins. And they said, we're going to take everybody with long hauler COVID symptoms, and we want the worst cases on earth, and we're going to ask them to wear a 7 milligram nicotine patch for 6 days only. Do you know 100% of all their symptoms were reversed in 6 days? Ask your doctor if nicotine is right for you. Oh, secondly, before you guys look at me like Robert Young said this morning to his wife, or his wife said to him, nicotine's addictive. Just so y'all know, Harvard proved in 2015 that nicotine is not addictive whatsoever. So they did FOIA requests with the FDA to find out why is it not addictive. They couldn't make any animals addicted to it for 6 months. The FOIA request showed that in the 1970s, tobacco giants couldn't sell enough of their products. So they hired chemists to come in and tell them how to make their nicotine-containing tobacco product more addictive. And these chemists said all you have to do is add any of these chemicals man-made called pyrazines and you can make anything addictive. And that is what drives the addiction of tobacco products. It is not nicotine. In fact, did y'all know that nicotine's in eggplants, cauliflower, peppers, all these vegetables, potatoes, white potatoes, every white potato you've ever eaten? Did you know that eggplant has the second highest amount of nicotine on earth? Did you know that tomatoes were the second and that green tomatoes have 10 times more nicotine than the red ones? And did you know that their studies confirm that Parkinson's disease can be slowed and reversed with nicotine-containing vegetables? Did you know that autism, I showed the studies yesterday, their antisocial behavior and aggressive behavior can be reversed in 6 days with a nicotine patch between their shoulder blades? Did you know that? Did you know that these same autistic people 6 years later are still wearing nicotine patches between their shoulders, and their guardians and their whoever they're married to actually say the only time they get aggressive or antisocial or can't lock eyes is when they've forgotten their nicotine patch in one day? Did you know Alzheimer's is reversed with nicotine? Did you know that hypothyroidism can be reversed with nicotine? If you didn't, you should go watch my presentation I just gave on Saturday. It's for free. It's at thedrartisshow.com. Go to patient resources, click the LA Conscious Living Expo, and you can get the whole download. Anyway, ask your doctor if nicotine's right for you.
Amazing. Amazing.
That's all I got to say about that.
I told you
This
you're going to
panel's like a box of chocolates.
Yeah. Life is like a box of chocolates. I told you you're going to get your mind blown. I saw a lot of mouths hanging wide open during that talk. You can purchase the presentations from everybody from in the hallway. How much are they? Huh? $10. Wow, that was amazing. And if you haven't seen some of the films that Dr. Artis has been in, Watch the Water 2 with Stu Peters, Covenom 19 with Jonathan Otto, Propaganda Exposed. I just listened to podcasts online with you, and my mouth was hanging open the whole time. So thank you so much for sharing. And sharing solutions too, because we have a lot of fighting going on, and we have to do that, but we also need to come up with the solutions. Who would like to go next?
Sure,
Sean?
I'll go next.
Sean Buckley from Canada. Can you tell us what's going on in Canada?
Sure, I'm always glad to speak. So, first of all, I think you need to understand as Americans that for the very first time, you need to be extremely concerned about what's happening in Canada. If the invasion of the United States is allowed to proceed, likely it will come from Canada. And before, you didn't have to worry, because there were two things about Canada that you could rest about. Your border isn't going to be violated. And you should know that the largest undefended border in the world is between Canada and the United States, both because we've both been peaceful Western democracies, and there's been no need for either side to be concerned. And also, it's just so cotton picking big that it's not realistic to defend it. But there were two things that protected you before, and that was a large and vibrant Canadian military and a cohesive society. Because if we're going to fight off a foreign invader on your behalf and our behalf, we have to be politically cohesive to have the will to pursue the war. Now, we have gone from, at the end of the Second World War, Canada had the fourth largest military in the world. But we have been systematically, over the decades, reducing that deliberately. And now, and listen carefully, the New York City Police Department is larger than the Canadian military. So the New York City Police Department is larger than the Canadian military, and the military is not properly equipped, and it's fully vaccinated. So even the numbers we have, many of these people will be disabled. And the other thing is we're no longer cohesive, as in the United States, but it's more advanced in Canada. All of our institutions have been systematically undermined. Our religion has been undermined. The family has been undermined. Our sexuality has been undermined. We are being flooded with different ethnic groups in an effort to completely dilute our culture, and there is no way we could be politically cohesive enough to, undergo a war, and this is deliberate. So you now need to worry, and you have to understand that we have become a full-blown police state. I'm the only member of this panel that has to worry, are my bank accounts going to be frozen because I'm participating in this panel? That's where we are in Canada, because I actually had that thought, because it's something I need to be concerned about. And I understand in the United States that COVID was a little ugly. We had masking, and you had vaccine mandates and the like. We had that on steroids. And some provinces actually set up police roadblocks between the provinces. And, you couldn't go on public transportation, you couldn't take a train, you couldn't fly. We, for long periods of time, went through that police state ritual of having to show your identity papers to enter non-essential services. And the level of fear, let me just give you an idea of the level of fear. The last two public lectures I gave in Canada, we probably had a combined audience of between 800 and 900 people. And I asked the audiences, put up your hand if in the middle of the darkness you honestly believed that the army would be going door to door, dragging unvaccinated people out of their homes and forcefully jabbing them. Almost every hand went up. Almost every hand went up. Now, we have politicians speaking publicly for this to happen. The level of fear was astronomical. We were paralyzed. So, when those truckers and their convoys started going, I know that they sparked hope in the United States. They sparked hope around the world. In Canada, it was almost a religious experience to see anyone standing up to the tyranny. And the fact that it happened in Canada is the most profound thing. And those truckers bought us a respite, because the government was now afraid to lock us down that winter. And so a group of citizens got together to take advantage of that lull, and they organized the National Citizens Inquiry, which, you know, as Kelly already indicated, we marched across the land, 8 cities, 305 witnesses, all testifying under oath, all, you know, questioned by lawyers, and we had all the experts, the Malones and the McCulloughs, and my friend here, Mr. Steve Kirsch, I called him as a witness at the Saskatoon hearings. And the experts were tremendous, but we also called ordinary Canadians. And many of them were afraid to testify. We had a whole lot drop out, and others had to be coached to testify because we had this atmosphere of fear. But there was something absolutely healing about listening to the voices. And we called everyone, vaccinated, unvaccinated. Like I challenge anyone, go to our Ottawa hearings day 1 and watch Sheila Lewis. You will weep. You'll literally find yourself weeping. There's nothing you can do about it. And so we found ourselves healing. And this was meant to be a secular thing, but God stepped in and took control. And like, you just watch a full day. Like, we've got tapes of the full days. And you'll see what I mean. And he came with specific messages to us. And the first message that came is we have to forgive each other. We've been so divided between vaccinated and unvaccinated that we had to get over that. And he told us how. You know, and it's like, okay, we can do this. And the next message is that you have to overcome your fear, that more things are coming that are going to make us afraid. But you were paralyzed this time because we'd never been through that intense fear before. And he told us, you can do it. You can get through it. You don't have to be paralyzed the next time it happens. It's kind of like, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So we're going to be afraid again, but we're not going to be paralyzed again. And we're going to keep that connection with our logical mind because we can do that. And then the next thing that he told us was, we are now personally responsible. We're in a spiritual war manifesting as an information war, which is much more dangerous than the bombs and bullets types of war. And you can't sit down anymore. Coming to a speech like this, watching podcasts, not enough. You actually have to be involved in making a difference, and he is going to hold each one of us now personally accountable. You know we're in a war. You can't sit still because we can change the outcome. So he was basically building a resistance movement in Canada using the NCI. And it wasn't our intention when we started it. It's just something beautiful that happened. Now, we finished our hearings in May of 2023, our first set of hearings. And as soon as we finish, Health Canada starts attacking natural health products. And I'll just say to watch the testimony of the NCI, the website's just nationalcitizensinquiry.ca. You'll be hooked if you watch. Pick 3 witnesses and your life will be ruined because you can't stop. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll weep, and there's nothing you can do about it. But we found ourselves all of a sudden, Health Canada is moving to take our natural health products away. Now, that's what we call them. For you, they're dietary supplements. And I'll share with you that yours are in danger also. And I'm president of an organization called the Natural Health Products Protection Association. Our website is nhppa.org. Our problem is we're in a drug model, and I'll warn you because you're about to be moved into a drug model. And so you need to understand what the drug model is. And so your Food and Drug Act, our Food and Drug Act, you know, pick any Western nation, it's all the same, it's all coordinated. They define drug so broadly so that it includes anything used for a therapeutic purpose. So anything used to prevent illness, anything used to treat illness is a drug. And then they put a section in there saying it's illegal to sell a drug without a license. So it creates a legal philosophical basis where it is technically illegal to treat any condition in both the United States and Canada with anything that the government hasn't granted permission. Now, you don't have to think too long and hard to figure out that that is not going to lead to good health outcomes and is a very dangerous legal philosophical starting point. But it's actually there for control, and it's there to protect intellectual property rights. That's a different lecture. Now, this was all fine and good. We could tolerate this because it was only being applied to chemical drugs, by and large, until the 80s and early 90s, when natural products or dietary supplements were becoming extremely popular. And the reality is many of us are only alive because of natural products. Many of us only have a standard of living, like the chemical drugs do not manage chronic illness. And so this is life and death, what we're talking about, and I think that's the problem. So both the FDA in the US and Health Canada started applying the chemical drug model to dietary supplements, and you guys rebelled. And that resulted in the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, which classifies dietary supplements as food. So you stayed out of the drug model, but you couldn't make full claims. So there's censorship, but you're not in the drug model. You don't need the government's permission to sell a dietary supplement. We lost our citizen rebellion, and we ended up in a drug model, but it was a soft drug model. Now we have to prove to the government that our products are safe and effective and get permission, but we could use traditional use evidence, and we didn't have to comply with the chemical drug regs. Now they're saying we need full compliance with the chemical drug regs, and we're going to lose our products. And your DSHEA legislation is under attack. They want to move you into a drug model, and that's an end game. So just as you know, you guys are familiar with the World Health Organization and the treaty that we can't call a treaty. It's almost like we're in Harry Potter where you can't say Voldemort, right? So it's a treaty we can't call a treaty. And so here we're going to find ourselves in a situation where literally in a pandemic, our health policy can be dictated to us, and where we're not going to have options to use natural remedies. Now I want you to think about this. There's one class of human being that cannot decide, how they're going to treat themselves, and that's the slave class. And we're going to end there. Now, I'll just end with the story of one witness at the National Citizens Inquiry, because it's both depressing and hopeful at the same time. So I called at the Red Deer hearings a lady named Regina. She was a political refugee from Poland. She had been involved in their solidarity movement from the very beginning. And for those of you who are too young to know, that's the movement that overthrew the police state in Poland. And halfway through, the main leaders get arrested, and she's, left with the sub-leaders trying to keep the movement going. And she was handing out pamphlets that went out against the government narrative, and she got arrested and sentenced to 3.5 years in jail. And she served 2 years and then was released and came to Canada as a political refugee. And it's ironic, she was terrified during COVID that she would get arrested for handing out pamphlets that went against the government narrative. Like we're a full-blown police state there. So, but she shared with us, she said, the Polish people knew what we're trying to do. And they would agree with us. Yeah, we want to overthrow the police state, but they wouldn't take to the streets. And she testified it was only when the bread ran out that people took to the streets. And then they peacefully overturned the police state. Now, the depressing part about this story is that, they waited until the bread ran out. And I'm hoping we don't do that, because it's getting worse and worse and worse. And the longer we wait, the more the consequences. But the positive part of the story, and understand, Poland was a police state for over 40 years. But at any point, they could have taken to the streets and peacefully overturned it, because they had the power. And we had the power. We have the power now. And so you need to understand how powerful you are when you're totally being told to get involved, and you will not believe the difference you'll make.
Thank you, Sean Duffley. I don't know if you guys know how long this DSHEA problem has been going on here in America, but I actually worked on a commercial. I was the PA on the Vitamin Act in 1994 with Mel Gibson. And at the time, I had stage 3B Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was working with Dr. Nick Gonzalez in New York doing coffee enemas and carrot juice. I had no health insurance. Nobody wanted to give me chemo. So that's what I was doing. And I volunteered for this commercial. And they basically did, you can Google the commercial. And it's the SWAT team busting into the mansion in the hills, you know, scaling the walls, and they bust into the kitchen, and Mel Gibson turns around and goes, "Relax, guys, it's just vitamin C." And this commercial ran in every health food store, and it's part of what saved our vitamins for all this time.
It was you that saved it, and you
Not
now
me.
have, you now
Mel.
have to save it again. Like, this is the point.
I was making coffee.
Is they wanted to take it down then, they wanted to take it down now, but you can stop it.
Yeah. There's been a fight for medical freedom probably way longer than most people know. I think COVID has brought this to the surface. Again, I mean, I petitioned for compassionate access at the FDA in 1996 and was laughed out of there because I wanted to do Brzezinski's treatment. So the fight goes on. And that, speaking of the fight going on, how about Steve Kirsch, you telling us how you got involved in this group of people fighting the paradigm shifters? And
Sure.
yeah.
So I had a question first, which is the truckers. Their assets were frozen by the banks. Did their assets become unfrozen, or are they still frozen, or were they confiscated?
I personally know two of the organizers whose assets are still frozen. And so, and one of them, they're basically it's political show trials, in my opinion. I have to say my opinion. I don't want to get this part here, as long as I can. But, one of them actually can't fund a defense because his assets are frozen. Wow. He's having trouble with fundraising. And the other one whose assets are frozen is, it's not just the criminal charges, like they're facing civil charges for mischief where, basically hundreds of millions of dollars are being sought in damages. So you and...
The frozen funds.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, from wherever they can get them. We know it's a dry well, but the purpose is, and you have to understand, despite the mainstream media, that was the most peaceful protest in Canadian, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people there at a time. And that ran for quite a long period of time. And you also have to understand, the police took them down. I don't know if you watched that. It's horrific, all these masked police. It should be illegal for police to be masked. It's total intimidation, and it's just evil. But the leadership had told the police that they were going to stand down and disband. So it was totally unnecessary. The whole thing everyone would have gone away in the next day or two. So this was a political show of force that was completely unnecessary. And it wasn't just the truckers' assets that was seized. Anyone who donated, they had their assets frozen. And it's not just the truckers. We're having other people that are political activists who are having their bank account frozen that have no connection at all to the trucker convoy. So this type of behavior is coming to a country near you.
And are those accounts still frozen for people who donated?
No, most of those are unfrozen. It was meant to intimidate.
Wow. Okay. Let me start off. Dennis Whipple, your phone is here.
And it's ringing.
Oh, okay.
You're very
Right, okay, good. I'm glad we found a home, because it wants you.
Is that the one that's ringing?
That was the one that was alarming.
Oh, I thought it was God ringing.
Yep. So there you go. And it's about out of battery too. So check that out.
Turn the ringer off or no?
Yeah, I turned the ringer off. So yeah, the alarm. I reset your alarms. You can't, in the iPhone, when it's snoozing and you click on open, it doesn't show you which is the alarm triggering the snooze.
Oh, is that what you were doing over there?
Yeah, I'm like trying to figure this out. It's defect in the UI. Anyway, so I got started in this just because I was a high-tech entrepreneur and my business got closed because of COVID. We couldn't come into work, so I was looking for ways to help out. And my wife was she was sewing masks, and I don't like sewing, so I looked for something else. And I decided to. I talked to a bunch of scientists that I had funded over the past 20 years, and they said that early treatments were the best way to deal with COVID. So I started the COVID-19 Early Treatment Fund put in $1 million of my own money and raised another $5 million from people in Silicon Valley who were generous, including Elon Musk as one of the donors. Jeffrey Skoll was another donor. And so we started this, and I recruited over a dozen scientists to act as the advisory board for the grants. And we invited people to apply for a grant, and we would fund them. And the reason that I did this is because it was a market opportunity, and I'm an entrepreneur. And what I discovered is that the US government and no other government in the world was funding this research. So why not? You know, it's an opportunity to make a difference. So we found a number of drugs that worked. One of them was fluvoxamine. It was featured on 60 Minutes, and of course they couldn't say on 60 Minutes that it would be helpful against COVID. They had to be like, oh, this is all experimental, and you shouldn't take this, and you know, check with your doctor first, and so forth. But it made a dramatic difference in the people that took it. It was quite astonishing. People would take it, and 3 days later they'd be like, hey, can I get back to work? I mean, it was, and there was no long COVID for people who took the drug. And so when it started off, there was this guy, David Seftel, who offered it at, they had an outbreak at a racetrack in San Francisco area. And so he offered it to the workers who were stricken by COVID. And at first he had a tough time selling it because people say, well, I have COVID, but it doesn't seem so bad. And so it turned out that the group that took the fluvoxamine, they ended up being, recovering in days and wanting to go back to work, and the people who didn't ended up hospitalized or dying and very sick. And so it became obvious to people after about a couple of weeks that the fluvoxamine group was doing way, way better than the other group. And so after this, because it was so obvious to people who weren't experts in medicine, your average person could see it, and even the management of the track could see the difference. And the management of the track went to Dr. Seftel and said, hey, can you give me a prescription in case I get COVID? So it was obvious to anyone with a working brain that this worked. So when then he wrote up his study, and it was published in a peer-reviewed journal. We had another phase 2 trial study that I helped to fund with the CETF money that showed it was very effective. And so we felt we had enough evidence, and of course it was obvious to normal people that it worked. So we had enough evidence to go to the FDA and apply for a EUA. I expected to hear back from the FDA within days. About 4 months later, I got a response from the FDA saying, no, we're not convinced that's not enough evidence for us. And so I thought, wow, these guys must be safety, 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 safety. Like fluvoxamine's only been around for like 30 years and nobody's died from this, and it has no downsides and it has all these upsides. Like, wow, and they won't even approve it for an EUA? They must be stricter than I ever thought. So, little did I know. So the vaccine comes out, and I'm thinking like, oh, the FDA is like, they're like super safety conscious. I mean, they wouldn't even consider fluvoxamine for an EUA despite a 30-year track record of not killing anyone and being, fairly innocuous. So I figured, well, these vaccines then must be like off the charts safe and effective. So this is before I became a misinformation super spreader. So I took the shots. I'm like believing the stuff works. I didn't know who Del Bigtree was at the time.
Too bad.
Yeah, no shit. That was a mistake. Anyway, so I got 2 of the shots, and then I started hearing these horror stories. I got a DM from somebody followed me on Twitter. She says, is the vaccine safe? And I wrote right back, of course it's safe. What are you, some kind of moron? You know, I'm a lot more polite, okay? But it's like, that's the kind of attitude, is like, well, I know, you know, I follow the FDA and they must be right. And so I'm saying, that's kind of a dumb question. You know, why are you asking that? She said, well, 3 of my relatives got the shot, and they were perfectly healthy, and now they're dead a week after they got the shot. And I said, well, that's statistically impossible. That can't happen. The drug is safe and effective. It only kills 1 in a million. Your anecdote can't be possible. And she wrote back, yeah, but they're dead. I could never forget that response. Yeah, but they're dead. So I thought either I was being pranked or I made a mistake in getting the shots, and so did a lot of other people. So a week after that, my carpet cleaner comes to clean my carpets. And we have very few vendors, COVID, you know, because we're all, you know, we got this fear mentality and all that, and I'm believing all the bullshit. And so he comes up to the door, he's wearing a mask, and I'm giving him a hard time because I'm still on the narrative, right? So I give this guy a hard time. I say, hey, if you get 2 shots, you don't have to wear a mask. I'm like totally buying the bullshit, okay? This is in, you know, early May of 2021. And so he says, well, couldn't get the 2 shots. I said, how come? He says, I got a heart attack after the first shot, 2 minutes after I got the first shot. And I said, really, 2 minutes after the shot, not 2 minutes before the shot. Yeah, 2 minutes after the shot. And so he said he had to spend the night in the hospital. He's never been the same since. He has never recovered from that shot. His life is ruined. I mean, this was a very healthy 45-year-old guy, no health problems, and now he's a wreck. So when I heard that story, and he mentioned that his wife also got the shot, and in her arm that got the shot, she had like Parkinson's, you know, kind of for like 4 months, and then it went away. So at that point, I was pretty convinced that I was being lied to, and I didn't think it was my friends. So I started looking at the VAERS data and confirmed that that was like slam dunk after I saw that. And then everything I've seen since then has like been, it's all confirmatory, right? I mean, I never run across anything that's credible that shows the opposite. And the most credible stuff nowadays, by the way, is what you hear from your friends, right? Not from what you hear from the government, because the government stuff is misleading, and the trials are misleading, and the studies are misleading, and it's about the same thing like with autism and vaccines, that the scientists will say, oh, you know, vaccines don't cause autism, and it's very clear that vaccines cause autism. The more vaccines you give your kids, the more likely they are to be autistic. In fact, I did a survey of my followers. I talked to 10,000 parents. And then I plotted the results, and the parents couldn't collude with each other because I kept the results secret. So nobody could possibly know who was responding and what they were saying. I plotted the results. It was a straight line. The more vaccines you got, the more likely you were to be autistic. There is no way that could have been faked. And people who say, oh, no, your followers are just, you know, anti-vaxxers, blah, blah, blah. No, there's no way they could coordinate to get a response curve like that. The only possible way to get a response curve like that is if the vaccines do, in fact, cause autism. And so there are all of these things in medicine where the data is crystal clear if you look at it properly. But in medicine, there are ways to look at the data improperly and create a study that shows there's no signal, right? Oh, it's safe and effective. We don't see a safety signal. We don't see a death signal. Oh, nobody's died from the vaccine. Well, you know, in the trials, nobody died from the vaccine. Really, did you ever do an autopsy on any of the people who got the drug to find out what they died from? No, we didn't, in fact. And when you write to Pfizer, the authors of the paper, and you say, well, you know, you seem to have left the autopsy results out of the paper, the people who died, can I see the histopathology, please? And the answer is that they don't answer your questions. So complete silence, which doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Anyway, it's just one thing after another in terms of, I'm a MIT trained engineer, so I look at data, and all this data that I collect, there's, you know, especially the anecdotes. The anecdotes are the best thing because the anecdotes are 100% verifiable, whereas the studies, they say the data is not available. That's suspicious. So when you can, the anecdotes, like I have a friend, Jay Bonner, who I talked to, he had 15 friends who died on him unexpectedly after 2021, and they were all vaccinated, and 4 of them died on the same day they got the vaccine, and 3 of the 4 were under 30 years old. Okay, calculate the statistical probability of that happening by chance if the drug only kills 1 in a million. Okay, it's like 0. So this stuff can't happen. And we see these anecdotes over and over again. Laura Logan used to be a 60 Minutes correspondent. She said she knows 20 people who died from the vaccine and 1 person who died from COVID. Now, the vaccine, not the virus. 20 people died from the vaccine, 1 person died from COVID. We did a survey. So I contracted with an outside market research company to survey 1,000 Americans picked at random. I did not pick the people. My consultant didn't pick the people. It was picked by TAP Research, who did the study, and it's picked randomly. They have no clue who gets it. What they found was that of the 1,000 households, about 100 had someone who died in the household. And people judged that close to 50% of those people who died from the vaccine. This is a disaster beyond all proportion. And you know what? New York Times is never going to do that survey. CNN's never going to do that survey. Nobody's going to ask. Nobody wants to look. When you try to show evidence from the Israeli Ministry of Health to the chair of the ASAP committee, she runs away and calls the cops on you. You know, this is the kind of thing. They basically want to run from the truth. And we have data. I got a dump of data, record level data, which means it's every vaccine that a person gets, in a database. I know when they were born, I know their name, I know when they died. I have that data, I obfuscated it, I made it public, so the public could analyze it, and an honest epidemiologist could say, whoa, we got a safety signal here. Not a single honest epidemiologist in the entire world has looked at that data to opine on whether the vaccine is safe or not. Not a single epidemiologist. This is ground truth, record level data, the best that there is. Doesn't get any better than this. It tells the truth, and not a single epidemiologist is willing to look at that data and say whether the vaccine is safe or not safe. What does that tell you? So, anyway, I think I'm probably out of time.
Well, you're going to get... We're definitely going to come back around. I wanted to say something. I worked on Mercury, the Mercury issue, for a long time, and many of you know me from that. One of the things that we learned in that film was that there was a guy named Dr. Braverman who told his students with research studies, start with the result that you want to get and work the study backwards. So
That's the way science is done.
That's the way science is done. That's what they teach the students to do. That's how they get their funding. And that's, yeah, so much for the study.
And if the data comes back that's opposite to what you expected, then
Hide
no,
it.
you delete the data.
Bury it.
This is what they do at the CDC when they studied autism and they got back a result showing that vaccines cause autism. They were William Thompson was instructed to destroy the data, but only the data that linked vaccines and autism. The other data would remain so that it would look like vaccines don't cause autism. And when he tried to testify in Congress, Congress wouldn't allow it. They told Bill Posey, Congressman Bill Posey, that if he had William Thompson testify in Congress, that he would be stripped of all of his chairmanships and he would never be able to do anything in Congress again, so he declined to have Posey talk. This is the way it's done.
Does RFK still have all of that data?
That data was some of the basis for Vaxxed.
Right, but
Right.
Robert F. Kennedy, does he?
Yeah, we have the
Oh, yeah.
we have the data. It's just that we're not allowed to talk about it, or like
Nobody
RFK
listening.
can talk about it, and then people will say, "Oh, he's just a misinformation spreader like me." Yeah.
Thank you, Steve Kirsch. Oh my gosh. Robert Young, are you ready?
I'm always ready.
Okay. Well, this is a man who has definitely been persecuted and gone through a lot in your lifetime. Only telling us how long medical freedom has been at risk when most people don't even know it.
Well, I experienced, thank you very much, and thank you all in the panel for being here. I enjoy coming to these because I always set a goal to learn something new, and I hope that you've heard some words today, right now, that you've learned something you didn't know before. I never judged.
Can you hear?
Can you hear it? Can you hear it? I never judged Brian, and I wanted to hear for myself from his own mouth. So I sat in his presentation and listened and listened to his logic, listened to his the research that he had gathered from what he's been talking about. Because people would ask me, "What do you think of Brian Artis?" Well, I have no comment. I don't know him. I mean, we haven't talked. I haven't looked at what he's researching, and so I think it was very valuable for him to be for me, but I think even more so for all of us to have him here as well as all the others who are on this panel, because all of them have one thing in common. We all have one thing in common, and that's for the greater good. And I believe all of us here are truth seekers, and that's what the book Truth versus Deception is all about. We wanted to calendar everything and document the references to that when you make some sort of a statement, which is black and white. For example, I'm going to make one right now. There is no disease. The whole medical platform, the narrative, is to call symptoms diseases, but there are no cures for those diseases. Now, how would I know that? I know that on a personal level because when we had the opportunity to work with the University of Southern California and to demonstrate over time using conventional treatments, multiple biopsy for the identification of cancer, lesions, and to prove out the cure for cancer. It took us 2 years. And we had third party, Dr. Andy Gill and his team, and we had our team doing tests as well. Now, some of our tests are very unusual. In 2016, even though we had done the work before, because we actually were anticipating publishing a paper in concert with the University of Southern California, a paper announcing the cure for cancer in 2012. Actually, the work was done from 2010 to 2012. It wasn't going to happen. I'm shocked. It was presented by the board of by the trustees that there would never be a cure for cancer, regardless of the efficacy. And that came with a check to the university for $100 million and more. That was just the beginning of this. We were going to take over the abandoned hospital at USC and work in concert with allowing people, I'm telling you this because I was in the White House presenting the same thing with Obamacare, because they wanted a offering that would cover both conventional or traditional and natural remedies. And it was in there until the powers to be took all that out. In other words, you could have gone to a chiropractor, you could have gone to an herbologist, you could have gone to a natural healer, and that would be covered under Obamacare. You could choose the care that you want. In other words, you truly had the sovereign rights of your physical body. It was your body, it was your choice. And yet, that's not the case with current health. That's why I've never had health insurance. Last time I saw a doctor was in 1952 when I was born in the LDS hospital in Salt Lake City. So, you can blame my parents on this. I can't blame them. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that because they would never take me to a doctor. They would never take me to a hospital, and they would have never vaccinated me. And that was the case with our whole family, because they saw what happened in World War I and World War II to their parents and to them. And they said, no, we're not participating in these inoculations because all vaccines is chemical poisoning. He's right. Chemical poisoning, by whatever name you want to call it. These are not vaccines. They provide zero immunity. And if you read any study correctly, when you read the study as it relates to immunity, which is a total lie, what it does is it activates as if a little poison, or you take a little disease to treat disease. Now that's called insanity.
Yep.
So what it does is we put a little disease in your body, that's going to provide some sort of antibody, which is also make-believe, or some sort of protection against if it's introduced to you sometime in the future, which justifies the fact to inoculate everyone. If you read the study, when anyone receives an inoculation, there is a response of the immune system, which is classified as white blood cells, neutrophils, basophils, lymphocytes, killer lymphocytes. You know, they're shocked. I've watched them. They're paralyzed by this. They're poisoned by it. There is no benefit of any vaccine. What it does is shows if you survive it, is that you can actually survive being poisoned. But that's the intention. If it really comes down to, as Henry Kissinger said, to reduce the surplus population of useless eaters. But that program's been going on for a very long time. It's not new. And Fauci is not new to me. He's responsible for a death in our family by a diagnosis of a so-called virus which has never been purified or isolated, called HIV, that causes an acquired immune disease, which is another symptomology of being poisoned. And when you take down, well, let's try this product like AZT, and all of a sudden, yes, you know, all these people that were healthy coming in that were diagnosed by a fake PCR test, which doesn't delineate anything, I mean, not my words, Carrie Mullis' words. You cannot use PCR testing for diagnostic purposes. It wasn't designed for that. Even the DNA theory is a fraud. So I can't go into a lot of depth in this, but I'm on the top 10 list. I was number 7, someone told me, to take out. But I was arrested in 1996, I was arrested in 1999, I was arrested in 2013, 30 days after the trustees at USC said, no, we can't do this. And I asked why. And the answer was because your protocol runs about $800 per treatment with a 96% success rate on stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. And 100% success in extending the quality of life and the longevity of life by 2.5 years beyond the which is unfortunate, the termination date. You're going to die, you have 6 months to live, go prepare I have thousands of patients who were given 6 months to live who are now in their 10th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th year because they didn't buy the cancer lie. And cancer, by the way, is not even a disease. It's not even a disease of the human cell. So I ask you a question. Well, I hadn't finished the story about USC, right? So USC said, we can't do this. Our treatments are $15,000 a treatment. They had their actuaries come in and evaluate whether or not this was feasibly, financially possible, that if they allowed people to choose when they came to their hospitals there between conventional treatments, chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, immunotherapy, it's unnecessary. Why would you want to use a disease format to cure a disease, which is not a disease, it's a symptom of something else? So when I say we, Dr. Galina McDowell, who came from communist USSR, she was a medical doctor, she was trained there, and she came here to America. And with her knowledge and her experience and with her intellect, she specialized, because you have to specialize in ultrasound. It's not something you just go and spend 3 or 6 months and learn how to do like they do here in the United States, and they have untrained people doing ultrasounds on this. But with ultrasound, and I test you that I believe, I'm not 100% certain, is the only place you can get this is to be number 1, an astronaut at NASA. And that's to test the largest body of water and its chemistry. So, did you know that the skin is not the largest organ of the human body? Did you know that? Did you know that the stomach does not digest food? Did you know that stem cells are not made in the marrow of the bones? Did you know that the largest organ of the human body was only announced, and it's not even taught in medical school, because this would be heresy to teach this, because then you would know the truth. And this is what we published in 2016. The chemistry of the largest organ of the human body, which is a body of water that is compartmentalized, which I learned about from my instructors and teachers from Germany. It's called the colloidal connective tissue of the Schott in 1988. They just are now doing studies on this, and they're talking about interstitial fluid lung disease. They're talking about interstitial kidney disease because of this largest organ, which is called, they named it, the interstitium. You know all that. How many know about the interstitium? Do you know the chemistry of the interstitium? Do you know what the pH of the blood is? 7.365. Did you know that the pH of the interstitium is 8.4? It's 10 times more alkaline. Did you know that fluid, did you know this? That fluid surrounds 72 trillion cells and is the dumping ground for metabolic processes of the cell and also the vascular fluids. Did you know that the vascular fluids are only 10% of the entire body, that based on diagnosis of blood is a representation of only 10% of the facts? Did you know that 80% of the extracellular fluids is the interstitium, or what we studied, or what I studied in the 80s, the colloidal connective tissue of the shod. Now, we just didn't study the pH of that, which some would say that's the study of what? The power of hydrogen. I would say the study of pH, perfect health. You cannot go on blood tests by themselves. You have to look at the entire picture. Did you know that it was available but was shut down in 2022 by the district attorney of San Diego? Because they don't want this kind of testing going on, even though it's totally non-invasive. It's totally non-invasive.
And useful.
And useful. Did you know that sweat is interstitial fluid? Did you know that urine was interstitial fluid? Did you know that for 10 cents a strip, that when you test the pH of your urine, that you're testing the interstitial fluid, which is the largest organ of the body, and that the ideal pH of 8.4, if you go home and do that, there will not be a single person in this room that has that ideal pH. You're all sick to a lesser or greater degree. Anybody here not experiencing some sort of symptomology? Okay, well, he's on nicotine. No.
So is his wife as of this morning.
Yeah, so what I'm saying to you is the whole science community is based on scientism. It is all completely off. And I'm going to make this quote. There is nothing so false that does not contain an element in truth, and so it is with American medicine. It is completely false. They tell you 1 or 2 or 3 truths, and then they have a whopper. Now, listen to this, because you want to know what I've been up to. In 2022, I published the non-disclosed ingredients that were contained in these inoculations, because they're not vaccines. This whole business of aerosoling and inoculating is a transfection. It's not an injection, it's a transfection. And it's happening from the paper straws that you suck out of, to the tampons you put into your body, to the condoms, to the RX. X is the disease. X disease, they're just warning you. We have micrographs of biochips with the mark of the X. The X disease is biochip. It interacts with 4 and 5G. The elephants in the room is chemical and radiation poisoning. Now, here's the shocker. You've all been biochipped. All of you. I don't care if you've been vaccinated or not. It doesn't matter. You've been transfected. You've been transfected from the meat that you ate. You're eating the interstitial fluids of those animals, and they are all transfected. They've been injected. Your eggs have been injected. Your fish, your chicken. This is a very, very important thing to understand. Very important to understand. So I published this paper. I disclosed the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room, and this is what you have to ask your doctors. I want a blood test. I want a chemistry. And I want you to add graphene oxide and ferric oxide. Because graphene oxide, here again, carries a surface charge, which is positive, okay? And that surface charge is responsible for creating the blood coagulation, of which I published as well. The cause of blood coagulation in the blood is caused by, with the pathological blood coagulation is caused by EMF. 4G interacting with the technology that has been infused in your body. If you want to be a denier, be a denier. I can take your blood, I can show you this technology, I can show you graphene oxide, and I don't care what instrument we have to use, because we have them all. And we can test it not just with live blood, which you see a lot of, or dark field. No, we can look at it under scanning, transmission electron microscopy. We can look at it under directed energy spectroscopy. We can identify, and this is what's in this publication. You know what I'm going to do for all of you? I'm going to give you this research for free. I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send you 60 articles. I'm going to send you my Harvard lecture, and I'm going to send you 2 papers, actually 5. I'm going to send you 5 papers, published peer-reviewed papers. One is on the undisclosed ingredients in the vaccine. AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, of course AstraZeneca's done. They've killed too many people. And Pfizer, they're about to be done. And Moderna's, pleading, saying uncle. Well, they admitted that graphene finally is in their product. They admitted to it. So the bottom line here is this. I'm going to provide this to you, okay? I'm going to give you some articles. You need to go down the rabbit hole on this and find out, because it's your body, it's your life, it's your choice. You need to be empowered. And there are solutions to this. The solutions is the opposite polarity to literally, here's a new word for you. You don't want to kill this stuff. You want to demagnetize this stuff. It's about demagnification. Because the plan is for the next pandemic is to jack the frequency in the wattage, okay, from 1 to 10, from 2.4 gigahertz up to 24 gigahertz. And you're going to watch your families and friends drop over dead once that frequency hits them. Why? Because you are all graphinated. You have all been biochipped. And if you want more evidence, you can get us. You go to your doctor. I want a chemistry. I want and we're doing these studies right now. In fact, we're offering $10,000 per person, or 30 years for the rest of their life. It's about 3,000, whatever it is. I think it's 3,000. 3,000. I'll have to look at the offer. But anyway, we're paying people, both vaccinated and unvaccinated, in order to participate in the study. We've already done the study. We have the technology to demagnetize ferric oxide, graphene oxide, aluminum oxide, and also a new chemical that was brought to you by our government, vilinidine dichloride, that they burnt and created phosgene and literally coated the yeast.
Well, I told you that all of these doctors and paradigm shifters could talk for 2 or 3 hours themselves, because they've got so much information.
But I want to, so if you go to drrobertyoung.com, give me your email address. I will send you an email, okay? And you're going to have all this information, and you can judge for yourself. We do have the truth books here today. Truth versus Deception, Part 1, Part 2. And the book on child trafficking, for those who really want to know the truth about that.
Now you know why Dr. Young is in so much trouble. If you look him up online, anybody who's in trouble online is actually on purpose. They're doing their life mission.
Anyway, I was arrested in 2000, I was 1996, 1999, 2013, and then just recently 2021. And I'm still in court. And you know what the DA said? But Judge, you need to take him into custody. He talks about COVID.
Oh my God.
You know what the judge said? I was waiting for this one. The judge said, well, isn't everybody talking about COVID?
Thank you so much, Dr. Young. Amazing. Told you guys, you're getting a lot of information. Hope you're taking notes or wrote his email down. Next, I'd actually like to bring somebody to your attention who is a special guest. Her name is Tracy Schroeder. She's a real life example of what's going on out there. She's one of the hundreds of LA teachers that were essentially fired for refusing LAUSD's tyrannical COVID vaccine mandate. She's named the plaintiff on a current lawsuit opposing any future impositions on medical freedom by LAUSD. Thank you for doing that. She's been working to replace the school board members of Los Angeles Unified School District, much needed, to prevent any further egregious policies that rob our 500,000 students and 70,000 staff members their constitutionally protected rights. In addition, this is what more people need to do, and this is why we brought you here. She's on the March 5th ballot for running for California Assembly District 46 for the West San Fernando Valley and part of Ventura County. She's fighting Sacramento's bad bills. Can you please tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. Can you hear me on here?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, Liv. Hi, guys. Hi, I'm Tracy Schroeder, and I've been a teacher here in Los Angeles since 1998, hired by LAUSD, and what an honor to be up here with you guys. You guys are all such an inspiration. I'm a regular on viewing your shows and learning from you, and but I want everybody to know that we can fight this. Boy, did I learn a lot from you today, because that's what we're doing. We're going to stop that from happening here. I'm one of the teachers who, back after the year that they blocked everybody off campus, brought us back as heroes, and then told us that if we don't take their injection, we would lose our jobs. And there were about 1,300 of us who said we didn't want it, and many of them were coerced. About 500 were immediately fired in 2021, and another 300 of us, and I'm one of them, was told no position for you, no pay for you after 24 years, and some even more than that. I'm an elementary school teacher, and what do? So you fight it. So we stood our ground. There are, like she said, about 5 actual lawsuits that are still in progress. They flipped their mandate. They rescinded it, is the word they used. And so several of my friends have actually been able to come back, and they're not fully employed yet. They're called pool teachers. And but all that to say that that my group is California Educators for Medical Freedom. We're sticking together and helping each other through this, and we've been fundraising to help support some of these lawsuits, because LAUSD and all of these other tyrants need to be stopped at every possible level. We know we're the freedom. Thank you. Yes. We are the freedom fighters in this room, but we also know that we're in a little bit of a bubble, and our neighbors need to be educated and they need to wake up. So when this was all coming down back in 2022, before I was told no position for you, I started looking into what do we do? A friend invited me to the Patriot Academy, and because I thought, we need to brush up on our Constitution. And so started learning about it, became a Constitution coach, and people like Dull, Big Tree right over there, said, you need to run for school board on his show, and so I did. Thank you, Dull. And something I want everybody to know, I ran, and I did my best, and I showed up, and I stood up, and I called them out in debate. I'd never done that before. And but because of showing up, changes actually got made. They were not allowing public comment to happen at a time that was reasonable for any human being. You have to wait for hours and hours and hours on end, and people have lives to live. That's the school board. And so they changed it. I didn't win, but a change was made. That's step one. So showing up and not backing down and telling the truth, that makes a difference. Okay, so that's over. That was 2022, but we're not done here, because this isn't over. Even when they rescinded the mandate, they left it wide open to do whatever they want, again, whenever they choose. And so I
I just knew something had to be done, and we fight from the inside. And so my heart's on school board because they have jurisdiction over what's going on with the kids. And I'm not going to spend all day on this one, but just so you know, the information, the rumors that you hear about the lies that are going on, schools are legally allowed to lie to parents and secret them away from what their parents care without the parents even knowing that they're having an emotional issue that needs some support. These bad bills are coming from our state assembly, and so as you heard a minute ago, I am on the ballot for state assembly to fight those bad bills. Thank you. We're gonna do it. And you know what? There's a whole team of us. I live up in the San Fernando Valley, not that far from here, and I have found a whole team of other people who are medical freedom platform, and we are going to stand together and support each other to make a difference. But in the meantime, because my district is District 4, and that's not up for election yet. But in the meantime, I knew that there were 4 seats open on this 7-seat school board. And so of these 7 seats, it was time to flip it. So I went to everybody I knew, and I was pounding a gong and beating a drum. And we got, okay, I didn't get 4, but I got 3 candidates, and they are on the ballot for school board medical freedom platform. And this can, yeah, that's right. And that is how we do it. We had to hustle 4,000 signatures, 4,000 to get them on the ballot. Look, I have to commute now. I'm a teacher, not working. LUSD did not employ me back yet. And in the meantime, what do? You don't go home. You go and you hustle in front of stores until it's done. And so what we're doing is we're going to get on board. If you live here in LA or if you live anywhere on planet Earth, you can help, actually in America, it has to be in America. You can help fund any of these candidates because we're doing it on our nickels and dimes. Whereas the teachers union, who's in full support of bad bills, the CTA is right across the street from where Sacramento legislation takes place, and everything gets run and approved by them, and we have nothing to do with it? Oh yeah, except every teacher you know may or may not have $130 coming out of every single paycheck that's helping fund these bad bills, whether they know it or not. And so there are some things that we can do, but primarily, you're here, we're breathing, we have a job to do. If you're alive, that's our mission. This is a war, and we're not backing down. And so I just wanted to say, together, there are some things. And one is, and maybe Steve, with his amazing data brain, thank you, Steve, can help with something like this, but to help get the word out, like a database or something, so that all the medical freedom candidates, not just here in LA, but across our country, we could all support each other. And because we've got to do this. My friends, they've got to win this. They've got to win this. And then there'll be another election in 2 years, and maybe it will be you. Because you just have to be brave enough to step up, hustle those signatures, and not back down, get some friends to support you, and we could use your help too. All of these school board candidates, I list them on my website. I am not a techie, but it's on there. My website is 2024, the year, 2024tracy.com. I've got an EY, but you could spell it without it. It's fine. 2024tracy.com to find out who the school board candidates are so we can flip the LAUSD school board, and then let's get some people into office to help fight these bad bills too. Thank you everybody for caring. Let's do this!
Yay. Tracy Schroeder, thank you so much. Where do we vote for you? If you're in the West San Fernando Valley? Yeah? That's what if people are...
Oh, yeah.
West San... No, I said if you're running in March.
Yes.
So you have to, what, District 46?
Yeah. So my race is District 46. Mm-hmm. It's basically the West San Fernando Valley. And so you've heard of Van Nuys, all the way across to Woodland Hills, a little bit of Ventura County, actually. And it goes all the way up to around Nordoff, which you may or may not know what that is, but basically the West San Fernando Valley.
Awesome.
So we can do this. Let's come on, you guys, and we'll carpool up to Sacramento together.
It takes a village. You know, I've been part of a team that founded the California Health advocacy that works very hard, like PERC does, to stop bad bills and pass good bills. And you know, this year we tried to do a bill that would, we sponsored a bill to give parents the option when it comes to the state owning and using their newborns' blood samples. They killed it, but we, you know, these are the kind of things that are going on when y'all don't know what's going on. And everybody that's monitoring these bills in Sacramento, it's a nonstop job, and it takes a village and an army, and I'm so glad.
Add one more thing.
Yeah.
Because you might not realize the emergency of this, because the unions are smashing $1 million. They defame us, right? When I ran, they lied about me. My neighbors were terrified of me, right? You guys know what that feels like. And but even with just a little bit of support, and you can find them on my website. Their websites are linked on my website, and so you can help support all of those races. But even I'm going to say it because most people don't know these details, but the charters sound like good guys, and they're not. I know of two that are. Two of them are, but that I know of. But they smash. They make so much money under the 50c3, and they funnel their money in order because LUSD's budget is like $15 billion, and so a lot of it is not even going to academics, and so $2 million against a couple of candidates across the city is nothing to them. And so that's our job, to get the word out, to help print flyers, make your own voter guide, whatever you can do. This is all hands on deck. We can save these kids. Or we could sit in our cozy chairs, wearing our socks, and do nothing.
Vote Tracy Schroeder, District 46. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. And thanks for giving her that great advice, Jill. Next. This force to be reckoned with, this one-woman legal hurricane. It's time for Lee Dundas to tell us what's been going on, what's happening, and what we need to do.
Thank you. I love you guys, but my butt is numb and my hands I can't feel, so I'm going to stand up, use that mic, and I'm running a timer on myself so I won't go over long.
Your butt numb? She's a walker.
Timer on. So my name's Lee Dundas. I'm a human rights attorney. You can find me at leedundas.com. My letters are Leigh. That's my pronoun because my mommy gave me extra letters in my name. leedundas.com. freedomfighternation.org is my 501c3. We do accept tax-deductible donations. Yay, you can write it off. I have a podcast coming out soon because Clay Clark keeps telling me I need to be findable and not just on rando video viral rants. And I have a new book as well, which is Just Stand Up, My Fight for Freedom, from the brothels of Asia to the streets of America. Shameless plug over. I usually forget to do that, so I wanted to make sure I got that housekeeping detail out of the way. I was going to talk to you because it was like medical, and I'm like, oh, I think Judy Mikovins wasn't able to come. Maybe I could put my Judy hat on, and I could talk to all the mommies and daddies in the audience about how, if you have your baby in a hospital in America with a Western medical doctor in attendance, it is 32.3% more likely to die than if you go home and have your baby with a midwife. And even if you're high risk, the odds are dead neutral even. Or did you know when you're ultrasounding your child, because you don't want to do a yellow nursery and you want to be able to do like green and blue or like pink, that you're actually cooking your baby? And that the professor at Yale who invented this stuff said, and I quote, where's the quote? Oh, I wrote it down. Dr. Taylor, professor of radiology, diagnostic radiology, and chief of the ultrasound section at Yale University Medical Center said, I would not let anybody get near my infant's head with a transducer, which is the ultrasound wand. They have higher rates of brain damage in ultrasound populations, speech pathology, and if you're doing vaginal ultrasound, it's even worse. So I was going to really mix it up, and then I realized that's not really the order of the day, so I threw my speech out. I'm going to talk to you about some other stuff. And I want to preface what I say with the fact that I got into Yale Law School at 17. Wow. Because I'm about to trash. That wasn't the important part of the sentence, but thank you. I'm about to trash what I have been doing for the last 30 years. And when a car salesman who is top of his company says, don't buy that car, you might want to listen. And it's not like I'm the worst car salesman on the lot, so that's why I prefaced it with that. So, and I used to represent chemical companies. And if I were billing out right now, it'd be $1,500 an hour. I work 10 hours on your case, that's a $15,000 bill. That is what I would be doing. And I am not doing that. Because for the last 10 years, unlike all of the other white shoe lawyers who work at the big firms, like I used to, I've been working in communist countries that are overrun with child brothels. 140 child brothels in the town I work in the southern part of Thailand, and across the river are radical jihadi terror training cells that like to keep their bombing skills sharp by bombing the hell out of brothels every day. First year I worked there in 2013, we had 330 bombs go off. That is one a day for those of you who are bad at math like me, basically. And when you go into these brothel towns, you see the police walk into a brothel, they spend a half hour in there, they come out, they literally have a garbage bag, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You know why? They're charging a protection fee. And when they're in there for 5 minutes, they're just collecting the cash to let the brothel stay in existence. And when they're in there for 35 minutes, they're raping the population that they're supposed to be saving. So when you're working in a communist frickin' country with radical jihadis at your back, so there's nowhere to run, your little arrow quiver thing that you're used to deploying in Orange County, California with your lawsuits and your legislation doesn't frickin' work. You want to go up to a cop and go, hey, 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 he's raping a kid. The guy's like, yeah, I'm next. You think that guy's going to save you? You think the judge is going to save you? He's in on it. You think the prosecutor's going to save you? You think the politicians are going to save you? Royal Thai Police, where I work, is ranked 4 out of 5 on corruption, or 5 out of 5, depending on the year. But I didn't get paid at the ripe old age of 21 as a lawyer, where most people were getting high in fraternities, to say to the biggest companies in America, Volkswagen, Advana Bank, St. Louis Rams were my clients, even though I've never watched a football game, including this year, because I was talking yesterday with Dell right around the time of the Super Bowl. You don't get paid to say, yeah, I can't get her done. That's your $250 an hour work comp guy. Oh, I don't know, I can't get it done. You get paid to get it done. And when you're in Thailand, nobody's really paying you, but you're still there to get something done. You're not just going to be like, well, I'm going to leave the little 7-year-old here to be raped all night. So in March of 2020, with that context set, when our health officer got installed, she got installed in the middle of somebody else's term, people were like, oh, she just did a mask mandate. Are you going to do a lawsuit? I'm like, F no. And they're like, what? But you're the great lawyer. Like, you know what you're doing. But yeah, it's not going to work. You're in a communist country right now. You just think you're living in America. Couple of things here, folks. Do you believe we're at war? Yes. When was the last time you went to a high school history class and opened the book to page 32 and found out how some clever lawyer named Sean or Lee Dundas got you out of World War II or Vietnam or the Revolutionary War? Said no history professor ever, because lawsuits don't win wars. This is about the right tool for the right time. As I said yesterday in my speech, if you walk out to the parking garage right now and you got a flat tire and I hand you a tire iron and a jack, you're done in 5 minutes flat. I give you a spoon and a fork, you're going to still be there 5 years from now. Not because you're not strong, not because you're not bright, but because forks and spoons are what you eat dinner with. Tire irons are what you change tires with. I love the lawyers on this field. I work with all of them. I brainstorm with them. I tell them to find a red county in a red state. I troubleshoot, I work the theories, I find plaintiffs, and I hand it off. Because I refuse to do something that is going to be a 90+% loss rate. It's not worth my time, and more importantly, your kid is going to die if I only do that. I am not saying don't do lawsuits and legislation. They are necessary in the same way the Army and Navy is right now, but they are also what is known as no longer sufficient to win the war. So when our health officer did the mask mandate, I didn't call up a lawyer, and I didn't become the lawyer that I am. I called up my PIs, and I said, I want to know everything there is to know about this woman. I want to know her better than I know my own husband. Turns out she was a Suboxone-riding pill mill whore. She had spent the first 8 years out of med school handing out Suboxone prescriptions to heroin addicts. Couldn't get her on anything illegal, but I didn't need to. I took the mic at the board meeting, and I embarrassed the living hell out of her. She jumped up mid-meeting and ran the hell out, ran back to her house in Irvine, and we followed her there. People had big old signs listing her crimes and craziness. I looked into the camera over a courtyard gate and I said, let me tell you what I didn't have time to say on the mic. I know that your daddy left your mommy and you were so brokenhearted you did every term paper on it, and your mommy hired a PI and a psychic to track him down. And I didn't know you had kids, but it looks like you do based on the wet sandy buckets. I am going to be here rolling tape on every damn second your child comes out that door if you don't have them mass from their little bitty eyeballs down to their clavicle. She quit. Total investment, $0 versus a lawsuit that would have run me $250,000 2 years in the Orange County courts, and I still would have lost. You know why I would have lost? My friends who went to MIT and Harvard and Yale, like me, are now 30, 40 years into their law career. They're Republicans. These are judges now. In spring of 2020, they were changing their party affiliation from Republican to Democrat. You think that guy's going to rule in your favor on a mass case or a freedom case? Yep, nope. Okay, a couple of other truths. I love my lawyers. How many people in the room are lawyers? Raise your hand high. We got 3. Are we? Thank you. You can put your hand down. I don't want it to go numb like mine is. Are we going to win the war with the 3? Yeah, yes. No, let me finish the sentence. Good on you, mate. Good on you. Yes, we are going to win the war. Are we going to win the war with just the lawyers? Are the generals on the battlefield enough to ever win a war? No. Right? We need an army. We need an army that is armed not with dinner forks and spoons, but with something they can deploy, they can do, that doesn't require 7 years of college and law school, because this guy's a farmer in Des Moines, that doesn't require $500,000, because he doesn't have it, and it doesn't require Del Bigtree or Bobby Kennedy or Lee Dundas' Rolodex, because he don't have that either. So the 3 programs I have done, I did not learn going to law school. They are naming and shaming your bad plan or your bad public officer the hell out of Dodge, like I did with the health officer, like I did with the head of the FAA when he allowed the airlines to mandate the vax, like I did with the second in command at the California Department of Public Health, Dr. Charity Dean, who was rewarded for her bad behavior in Santa Barbara after witch hunting little kids and their medical exemptions, not by going to jail, as she should have been, but our good governor elevated her to being second in command at her public health department. But I got a hold of her. We did a little press conference in 2019, and she got resigned too. You can do this too. You can do it too. Okay? You can also bully your bully back into their lane, which I have done a lot of. Newsom was going to keep us locked down for frickin' ever. We hit the metrics to reopen, and he goes, yeah, sorry. We're going to do a new system now, red light, green light, and we're not going to be open for the summer. No Dodger games for you. I didn't do a lawsuit. I went to Trump and Bill Barr. I did not know them. This was spring of 20. And now I know the Trump family. Back then I didn't. Wrote him a love letter. I said, our governor, when I told the counties to open back up, threatened to withhold all their state funding. He's blackmailing the counties to stay locked down. We got a simple request. If he makes good on that, do the same. Withhold all of our federal funding from our state for 1 solid year. I heard you guys were going to jawbone out-of-line governors. Start with mine. I got the letter into their hands at 7 a.m. on Monday. Newsom announced his new lockdown Friday night. By Monday at 4:47, Newsom was standing in front of one of these going, just kidding, we're going to drop that new plan and reopen the state. You're going to have a Dodger game after all. You can do this too. This requires a room temperature IQ and a willingness to take the mic like that cool lady just did. You all can do this. Power of the People initiatives. I ran a convoy to get the rest of the blue states open. Nothing in law school prepared me to do that. You know what prepared me to do that? A coup d'etat in frickin' Thailand in February of 2014. I go out of my hotel, there's a coup happening. I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't know what to do. I'm from a first world country. And nobody was winning. The military was winning one day, the people were winning the next. Finally, the farmers are like, we've had it. You know where the story's going. I said the word farmer. Farmers get on their farm equipment. A day and a half later, at 13 miles an hour, they make their way into Bangkok, circle that airport. It was game frickin' over. Yeah. You know who else just did that this week? Germany. You know who else paved over their concreted roads? Paris, Netherlands. We're doing one at the border. First one that was done was in Canada. I consulted on that one. Second one was done here. You saw the truckers. I was the hand behind the scenes, getting them a retired naval commander who had ran convoys in the Mideast, getting them their money, getting them a law firm so it didn't go missing with Stripe kidnapping it and the government kidnapping it. You can do it too. Nobody taught me in law school how to do a flippin' convoy. All right, I am going to close on the fact that we are going to win this war. But first, my mouth is dry, so I'm going to get a little bit of water. We are going to win this war. And all we have to do is stand up. And I'm going to tell you a story about standing up that I learned doing the brothel work in Thailand. I get there to Thailand in this fall of 2013, and our in-country liaison guy comes up to me and he goes, I hired you as secretary, I hope you don't mind. I'm like, no, praise God, thanks, one less thing for me to do. I'm in a foreign country, don't really know what I'm doing. And he goes, yeah, and she's also intel. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, she's also an intel asset. She's like 17, 18. I'm like, she's my secretary and intel? Like, my intel guys look like Navy SEALs, and my secretaries in Thailand usually are like this tall and 90 pounds. And my brain was just coming to a grinding halt because I'm like, what? He's like, I'll let her tell you her story. I'm like, all right. So a week later, she comes into my office. She's been working for me for a week. She goes, hey, I got your computer to talk to your printer. I'm like, great. And then she gets really quiet. And she sits down very gingerly. And she starts moving tchotchkes around my desk. And I zipped it and shut up and looked at her. And she said, I am what happens when Australian men come to my country and marry a native Thai girl. My father was a mean Australian drunk, and my mother was a native Thai woman. And my father would take his rage and alcoholism and anger out on my mother and me by beating the living hell out of us. But that is why I speak fluent, albeit Australian accented English. And so one day when I was 12 years old, I left my little shack because my mother was getting wailed on by my father, and I wandered down the road and I sat on a tiny little bus bench in this dirt road by my house. And a few minutes later, a truck pulled up that was full of 4 young guys, and they hopped out of the bed of the truck, and they wrestled me to the ground, and they shoved a needle in my arm. And when I woke up, it must have been a heavy narcotic agent, because when I woke up, I was in a slave trading camp on the Thailand-Burmese border, where men the world over would come from the brothels of America and Australia and Switzerland to literally buy their product and take us back to their hometown. And so a couple months go by, and the guards would sometimes get bored, and when they would get bored, they would just line us up in a row, firing style, and they would just go down the line, laying guns on temples and executing us. And she said it with a lot of condescension and derision. And every time they get to a new girl, she would drop to her knees and grab for the gun and grapple for it and beg and plead for her life to no avail. And then she stopped talking. And I said, what did you do when they got to you? And she said, I stood up. I stood up and I reached out my hand and I said, give me your gun. I'm not fucking living like this anymore. I will shoot myself. And the owner of the camp was walking by and he overheard me and he said, you follow me into my office. And he sat her down and he said, little girl, I've been doing this 10 years. And everybody but everybody will beg for their life, no matter how strong and poser of a person they are. They will beg for their life in the final analysis. But you didn't. And I want to know why. And for the second time that day, she stood up, she leaned over the desk, and she said, I know you have a gun in one of those drawers. Give it to me. I'll say it again. I'm not living like this anymore. I'll shoot myself. And the owner of the slave camp leaned back in his chair, rocked back and forth a couple times, did one of these, and said, get the hell out. She walked out of there alive. And I learned that day in a high-rise in Bangkok from a girl who was at the time younger than my daughter is now at UC Davis, a lesson in courage that I have not ever forgotten, and everybody needs to be hearing this and doing this every day, and here it is. When you are facing a locked and loaded weapon that is ready to do you in, that is full of hate and anger and tyranny and is leveled at your damn temple, you stand up. You always stand up, because you are far better off fighting and dying on your feet than ever taking a damn knee, because tyranny will chase you on your knees, but you will find freedom, even if it's not the kind you hoped for, if you stand and fight. I will be selling my book at the back. Let's stand up.
Lee Dundas, rock star.
guys are heroes.
One woman hurricane, and we can all do it. These are people on purpose, you guys, and I think part of this whole panel is these are the people who have really found their missions and walked off the plank no matter what, and did the job. Which brings me to our final panelist, the guy who walked out of his perfectly good, high-paying job at the doctor's to go into the abyss of the unknown. And I think we are all so glad you did, because the world would be a different place, Del Bigtree, if you hadn't shown up. What a rip.
If I do this right, then we will officially have spent the entire 2.5 hours introducing ourselves. So thank you for being here.
We want a 5-hour panel, but it didn't work.
A friend of mine texted me recently, and she said, I've got a great book for you on, how to manifest your intentions. And I wrote back, if I manifest any more intentions, you're going to have to put me in a loony bin. I'm an incredibly blessed person. I made the easiest choice of my life when I ran smack into what was my destiny. And I recognized it as soon as I saw it. So all these ideas that, you made a sacrifice, you took this leap of faith, you left your job, all of those things, it didn't feel like that at all. There was no other choice. And I think about it a lot now. What do you say? I remember reading all the books of people that spoke like that. I read The Secret, it annoyed the shit out of me. None of that seemed to work. And now I think, am I going to be that guy writing one of those books that just annoys the hell out of you because you're like, I don't know why that's worked for you and no one else. I have to believe the universe is honorable. I have to believe that we all have a destiny on this planet. And I have to believe that we need to find that destiny if we're still searching for it, like, immediately. One of the things, I'd spent years, my whole life, I think I was socialized for it. My parents raised me to believe as a child that I was on this earth to make a difference on the planet. They pulled me out of school as soon as I started listening to my friends and said, you're never going to be someone that cares what your friends think. So I really am lucky that I have these incredibly conscious parents that made me believe I could make a difference in the world. So I don't know if I get here naturally or if that was planted as some sort of idea, but I spent my whole life with just an empty thought. I had a lot of successes, but it was just, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. There's a reason I'm here. There's something I'm supposed to do on this planet. I can feel it. And I was spending about 2 years in sweat lodges with a men's group and sweating every single, every month, once a month. And we were all in there praying for one guy had trouble with relationships, and I just kept saying over and over, I have all these talents, and I just don't know why, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something here. And I just remember at the end of 2 years, the guy running the sweat fund said, gentlemen, it's been about 2 years we've been doing this once a month. And I'm hearing a lot of the same prayers in here. Like, I think it's literally the same prayer from each of you for 2 years. And there's no way the Great Spirit is not answering you. You're not listening. That's all that can be possible here. I'm running a sweat lodge of men who cannot listen. And, and I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? That's got to be true. It's crazy. We've been in here whining like babies, sweating and crying about, the pain in our lives. And I immediately just thought the answer must have already been given to me. And in that situation, I'd won an Emmy Award in television, but all I was focused on was trying to make a movie. And a great script with some of my friends here that were a part of that process. But I just kept having doors slammed in my face, but I was going to be a filmmaker. I was clear on what I was here on this planet, and I just realized, television loves me. They, like anything I want to do, is going great. I'm winning awards, but all I'm focused on something else. And I just thought, why don't I actually focus where I'm loved? Why don't I just follow where the energy is? Like what, where I'm feeling loved. And I let go of the film. I called my father, who I wrote the screenplay with. So it was a whole father-dad thing, and like, you know, I mean, dad and son, and trying to make his career happen. Just let all that shit go, and just said, I'm gonna focus where I'm loved. And what's ironic is I wanted to make a film so bad, and I always wanted to see my name roll on credits on a film, and I finally just let it go. And people would say, you know, you're so close, man, the script is so close. Oh my God, I was like, you know what, I don't know what close is until I've made a movie, and I know how far away I was from the moment I would see my name on a screen. But ironically, the moment I walked away and let it go and called my dad and said, I'm walking away for this script that's held me hostage for 10 years. I'm done being held hostage by my 18-year-old idea of who was gonna be. And I'm gonna let, you know, God and life guide me. And ironically, almost probably a year, maybe a year and a half later, I was sitting in a movie theater, Vax is rolling, and there's my name in movie theaters all across the country and the world. And I had found my place. I only want to say, and I could go on, I want to say this, that there's so many blessings. I managed to have a great expression through the High Wire. I have a nonprofit that's funded by the people. We are suing the government, and no one ever thought that was possible because no one would be able to afford to do it. No one would go into lawsuits that you can get nothing for it. You just prove that the government's lying. And we managed to create a system where we use entertainment to get people like you to give us $5, $10, $20, and we're raising millions of dollars so that we can stand our ground when they're pushing us around, and we're winning lawsuits against NIH, FDA, CDC, Health and Human Services. We just got back the religious exemption in Mississippi, which is a major bucket list. We're going to come after California and all the other states that are robbing people of the ability to exempt out. We won all the Pfizer data so every scientist in the world can see what happened in the trials, and we won the Moderna data so every, you know, scientist in the world can actually see what the FDA was hiding. And we won the V-Safe data, and we got all the check the box data that came from the app, and then recently we just finally won the open box data, which is where all the bodies are going to be buried, literally. And all that's made possible because you and your support. But what I want to say is all the time I've been doing that, all the time I've been talking about how amazing and we're winning deep down and with my team and those close to me, I am still praying because what is coming after us is so massive, so powerful, and we are so late to this game. We have only in the last breath, the last moment of the last inning decided to mount any kind of resistance whatsoever, and we are moving very fast. And we're doing really good. But we are, I don't think, 5 years away from the end of everything that this country is supposed to represent, everything that's a piece of our freedom. So all the time I've been doing this work, as I have the whole time, which is God decides how this all ends. I am just a vessel. I'm gonna move as a vessel, and I'll keep saying yes to everything God puts in front of me. But I've been thinking the whole time, man, this is going to close out. This is a game of chicken that we're going to lose if something outrageous doesn't happen. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm going to be a part of it. And I'll say this, then I got a call from Robert Kennedy Jr. And I just want to take a moment, because I'm not working as a nonprofit right now, and I'm not allowed to say it on my show, that we have a health freedom warrior, someone that has stood on the stages with all of us. And now he's running for president of the United States of America. And for anyone that thought that that would be a long shot, I will tell you, I've been in meetings with him from the very beginning when he was thinking about doing it. We prayed that maybe when he jumped in the ring, because of his Kennedy name, he might come in at about 5% of the vote. Like maybe there's a lot of negativity we're gonna have to get over, but if we can get you at 5%, we can get the story out, we can start growing with that. I said, I'll help you make some videos. I'll do whatever I can do. And then Bobby entered at 15%. And then within 2 months, he's at 20%. And now this month, actually last month, he's at 21 to 26%, depending on the poll in the battleground states. He's winning #1 amongst all people under the age of 35. In the battleground states, he's #1 under the age of 45. He's #1 against independents, which is the biggest party there is now in this country. 34% NBC just did a poll. 34% of Americans are now considering voting for Bobby Kennedy. And all of that has been done. Like, there's a headline in one of the Wired magazines saying, even though mainstream media shut him out, Bobby Kennedy is everywhere because of social media. He's doing something no one understood how to do. And that's what I've been involved in. So with everything else I've got going on, I am Director of Communications for the Robert Kennedy Jr. campaign, and if you have been watching me and through this incredible experience and wondering what's going on, I will tell you we have one shot, and it is not Donald Trump, and it is not Joe Biden, and if you are thinking anything like that, you're out of your fucking minds, is all I gotta say. We have a man running for president in Donald Trump that literally handed our enemies, the pharmaceutical industry, billions, if not trillions, of our money, of our hard-earned tax money, gave it to them. Let them take over the world, shut down our fucking businesses. A man who promised us he would run it like a business, took the keys to America, handed them to Tony Fauci, and said, drive them off a fucking cliff, and we did. We lost $3 trillion in the middle class that went to the rich, the billionaires, his friends. And we got Joe Biden that stepped right in there, took that COVID vaccine and forced it on us. Both of them destroyed everything we know of freedom, any idea of what this country is supposed to represent. And if you right now are sitting in this room and you have not gone to Kennedy24.com and watched the videos and said, let me sign myself up, let me get him on the ballot in California, then you're all wasting your fucking time here. I'm sorry I'm getting intense about this, but I don't know what you plan on doing. I don't know what you plan on, what's going to save you or what it's going to look like. When you have a freedom warrior that is out there being ridiculed and ripped apart and thrown shit on and mud and tar and feathers, and he keeps standing up for your kids and keeps taking it, even though he's a Kennedy and he doesn't have to. And I've said to him, why don't you walk away, Bobby? You're the greatest environmental lawyer that has ever been. You have been fighting for the people your whole life. The Democrats love you if you will walk away from this vaccine issue. It's killing you. And it's killing your family name. And he said, because I am a Kennedy, because my father would drive off the path, take us to the poorest cities and the poorest areas and say, we as Kennedys don't represent the people that have all the money and have all the businesses. We represent the people that can't speak for themselves. Those that are being injured. We have a man running for president that is fighting for those being injured by vaccines. That is fighting for doctors like this that are losing their licenses every goddamn day. And we're so close to becoming Canada over here. Our Constitution barely held us together during COVID. So I am passionate. And I love you. But you have got to get up. Stop going, oh my God, those people on that panel, oh, it's so amazing. Thank you for your work. Fuck that. I can't do this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to pull this off without you. Get off your fucking couches. Get out. Get people up and get Bobby on the ballot. Start supporting all these things you know. This is your issue. You don't have to be a talk show host. You don't have to be a doctor. You're a citizen of the greatest nation in the world that's being taken out of your hands right now. Get up and do something about it. So support someone that's done nothing but stand for you, with you, and speaks the truth. Listen to his videos. We have a spiritual man. One of the most beautiful human beings I have ever met in my life. We may not deserve someone this great, but he's running for president. And the media is going to try to tell you he can't win. They're going to try to tell you and all your friends, oh, you're wasting your vote. At 26% right now in the battleground states, if he takes 5% more from Trump and 5% more from Bobby Kennedy, he's the next president of the United States. So why don't you grow some confidence? Why don't you recognize there's a miracle happening right now? There's something dynamic that sets all of us free to keep doing the work that we want to do. There's an advancement in medicine that these people that I bow down to can bring to us to truly take us to another place. But if we get Donald Trump or Biden as our next president, We will never get there. It will be over. This next 4 years will decide the entire fate of our species, of this nation. Clear your cobwebs. Stop listening to the bullshit news. Call everyone you know. We're about to take the White House and change the world.
Well, big tree. Wow. Well, we've had some of the greatest voices on the planet here today. I know, Del, you don't want to, but listen to what they said. Everybody can do something. Everybody has their role. It's if you don't know what your mission is, maybe this is it, and it's time to choose it. Time to get on purpose. These are all people on purpose, and I'm honored to have gotten to moderate this panel. I want to thank Donna Schumann again, and Brandy and Robert Quicksilver for allowing us to have this conversation at Conscious Life Expo. But do we have time for questions?
So let me just make it really clear. You're just asking. You have to, if you live in California, you got to go and sign up as, you got to change your party to We the People. If you want to know how to do that, go to kennedy24.com/CA-ballot. And that's the party. We've gone with a party in California. We need 75,000 people to register for that party. Doesn't mean you have to vote for them. You can vote Democrat or Republican or anything you want. But at least get We the People on the ballot here in California. All right, thank you.
So we could do a Q&A for 15 minutes, and we actually here to 5, and then we're going to do a meet and greet at the back where you want to talk to some of the panelists, and we have some book signings, so we're not out of here yet.
So we get to do some burning questions?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. We have a burning question right out here in the front.
Hello, could you guys talk about some success stories that you've had with your family, friends, and loved ones and previous colleagues where you've actually changed their mind? Let me give you an example. I actually have a friend who's a Caltech professor, and I have a physics math degree, and I brought him a paper having to do with the grand unified theory that it goes a long way of solving, okay? So we meet, we were having a beer at a pub, Sierra Madre, really nice, and I printed the paper out, okay? And, it was his birthday, I gave him a nice gift and everything, and I go, I don't want to say the guy's name, but Caltech professor, full professor, okay? And I show him this piece, and I go, let's go over it. There's nothing fancy, because he's a Caltech professor. You would have thought I wanted to kill his mother, because the journal was not a high impact factor. No, it was, I kid you not. I've met hundreds of people and had hundreds of interactions, professionally, personally, and the level of upset was astonishing. And this was 2012, 2013, 2014 when the piece came out. Anyway, so this is like 10 years ago, and I've been to his house, right? So I know this guy. Anyway, so could you talk a little bit about that? Where the
cognitive dissonance.
The professional meritocracy class that we're all a part of, family, friends, and loved ones were educated, but they got nice houses, nice cars, nice wives, nice families, and they go, wait a minute, listen to Steve Kirsch, or listen to Lee Dundas, listen to Del Bigtree. You know what? They'll even see their own family members die before they'll admit it, and also because if they've been giving vaccines to their vaccines to their kids.
Kelly,
So the question is, how do we change people's minds?
I can do it in 30 seconds or less.
30 seconds.
You can't go in the front door because they're all ridged up. So if you start talking to them about the vaccine or COVID or the fact that they're a Democrat, you're done before you start. The Democrats care a lot about vulnerable citizens. It's part of their party platform. I have had huge wins changing people from Dems to Republicans by talking about human trafficking. Oh, it's so awful. Oh, tell me more, all those little sex slaves. Yeah, so 90% of the sex slaves we rescue in Thailand are from Laos. You know what Laos is? No, what? A currently communist country. Oh my God. So why did they sell their daughter to a brothel? Because they're poor. Why are they so poor? Because they're living in communism. What's that like? And I start going through the communist takeover of the country in question. And by the time I'm done, they recognize the parallels. Oh, the statues are being ripped down, and oh, they're, you know, changing the nomenclature, and oh, they're saying it's just 14 days to do X, Y, or Z. And literally, I had a black guy come up to me in St. Louis at the end of a speech, and he goes, "Ma'am, I'm black, and I was born in an inner city. You know what that means?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're a Democrat?" He goes, "Not anymore."
I think you have to just appeal to humanity. I mean, you know, throwing like studies at people doesn't actually work. You kind of really have to sort of ask questions. I've said this before. You've got to plan. I think my job when I'm trying to talk to somebody is to find a question that I can ask them where I can tell it really bothers them and they can't have an answer to it. A lot of times I'll just say, "So do you just believe it's out for your greater good?" Well, no. "So you think that drugs, like sometimes bad drugs get on the market?" Well, yeah. Okay, but vaccines are made by some group of angels in the same building by the same company. Like, I don't understand how you think that, you know, what is it about vaccines that they would be perfect and drugs aren't? So I start there, but I'll tell you quickly a story. I was talking to a New York Times reporter, and it's the first time I really heard a light bulb go off on the phone call. And it was interesting where I got it. I always just rant at these reporters. Like, I don't really hold back. I don't stick to sound bites, but I was in the middle of a very long conversation, and I'm sure it's going to be a hit piece. And I always say to them, "Why do you think I'm doing this interview? I know that you're just going to try to make me look bad and say everything that I'm doing is dangerous to children. So what do you think makes me do this interview right now? Like, what do you think obviously I care about it. And unless you're going to figure out some way to write that I'm lying, that I don't actually believe the things I'm believing, or saying, but you can tell I'm passionate about everything I'm saying." So anyway, that's where I started. But she said something interesting. This is just, you asked, with the COVID vaccine. And she's like, "Well, it's been proven that the myocarditis is caused more by the virus itself than the vaccine." I said, "That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous statement." I said, "First of all, I could show you more than a dozen studies. I know the one study you're pointing to, the CDC points to." I said, "But let's put all the studies aside for a second. Let's just be reasonable. Can we just be, you seem really intelligent. You're an intelligent reporter. I can tell you know what you're talking about. So let me just say this. Are we in agreement that the spike protein is what's causing myocarditis, right? That's the bioweapon, basically, of this virus. That's what it is, that's the dangerous part." She's like, "Yes." "Okay, are we clear that that's all that the vaccine makes? That the vaccine makes your body start producing tons of that spike protein, which is what causes the myocarditis, right?" She's like, "Right." I said, "So all things being equal, if the virus does it and the vaccine does it, there's only one major difference. When the virus is going around, some kids will get it and some won't. If you mandate that vaccine on every single person, even if they're just exactly the same, more of those kids are going to come in contact with that spike protein. Therefore, more kids will get myocarditis." And she gasped. It was the first time I've heard it. Like, she was like, "Oh my God. I never really thought about it like that." I was like, "No, I know. I could do this all day long." But it's just using reason. Like, all the science and shit, like, really, there's more reasonable ways to have these conversations. And so draw them into a conversation like that. And I will say, I also tell her I'm recording this, for quality control. And afterwards she texted me and said, "I don't want that audio out there." It's like, "Oh, it won't be as long as you properly quote me in the article." Which is what I do in all my interviews. And, she called me and was like, "Let me read to you all the statements I have you making." It was really awesome. And she started out with, "ICANN's an anti-vaccine nonprofit." I was like, "Find anywhere on my website where I refer to myself as, anti-vax." She's like, "Well, what do you want?" I said, "We're a medical freedom advocacy group." And that's what she wrote in her article. So we are turning a corner. We're turning a corner in our ability to have this conversation. But it's just about, I just think, have fun. Right? Honestly, like, you want to change someone's mind, you have to care about them. You've got to get off of thinking about all your talking points and listen to them. What is it you're concerned with? What do you think? When they say something like that, now we have somewhere to start. You just made a really clear statement. Let's walk that through. Instead, we kind of come in and just throw all this data and this and that. You see Del Beatry and do this. Like, it's so offensive. No one wants to put up with that. Instead, be intrigued. Why is it you think this vaccine's safe? What are you looking at? How many times should you get a vaccine before it should finally work? Is 5, 6, 7? Like, I'm just curious, what is that number for you? Questions like that. All right, I got a really important phone call. I'm serious. So I love you all. I got to run out.
Del Bigtree. Give it up for him. Thank you so much, Del. Let's give all these guys another round of applause. It's just so much. So much. Thank you. Be brave. Keep being brave, everybody. Be brave.
Kelly, can I address that question?
Can I say something?
Yes,
Just really
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it was Einstein. I'm going to quote: "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand what you're talking about." So here it is for all of you. I'm going to use a metaphor, okay? And it's a metaphor that I guess a lot of people know me by, because it's a simple. And you can ask your children this question. It doesn't have, they'll actually answer it correctly. If you have someone that's educated beyond their intelligence, like this professor, then you're going to get a different answer. You're going to get a different outcome. You didn't want to hear it. So here it is. So we all know, we probably experienced in our youth, taking care of a fish in a fishbowl. Right? You all remember that? Okay. So what would you do if the fish is sick? Would you treat the fish?
Vaccinate it.
Or vaccinate the fish? What would you do? Treat the fish or change the water? How many would change the water?
Vaccines are safe and effective.
So why did you all get vaccinated then? I mean, if the fish is sick, you don't treat the fish, you change the water. What are our bodies? Water. We are a bag of water. And guess what the fish are? Our cells. Disease is an expression of cellular transformation. Did you know that bacteria is a biological transformation of cellular breakdown? There's no such, they're not like cats and dogs, E. coli, anthrax. This is all made up shit. They take anthraxis bacillus. I showed it in my lecture if you attended it. I showed that anthraxis bacillus comes right out of the cell membrane, and then it can revert right back to a red blood cell. You see, in physics, matter cannot be created nor can it be changed. It cannot be created. It can only organize or disorganize. So bacteria in the body is a symptom of cellular breakdown due to chemical and radiation poisoning, period. We have to get off the germ theory and come to this simple. Ask your children, if the fish is sick, do we treat the fish or do we change the water? And how do you measure that water? You go out and you get some pH hydrant paper, you test your urine first thing in the morning, because that is the most acidic time of the day, and you will have the answer to your questions as why you feel like shit. You'll have the answer to why you are sick and tired. Because the ideal pH of the urine is between 8.4 to 9. You knew that, right? When you hyperperfuse alkalinity, this is what changes the environment, and this is how you cure any disease, including autism. Autistic children test their pH. You will see the answer in the facts between a pH scale of 0 to 14. They're going to be in the 5s, in the 6s. Once you start hyperperfusing alkalinity and changing the water, I mean, what would happen to the fish if it went from 8.3 pH of the ocean to 7.9? What would happen to the fish?
He would develop myocarditis.
They would die from myocarditis. Myocarditis is not a disease. It's a response of those cells. So the cells are responding and transforming. What happens to the food in your refrigerator? If you don't manage that environment, what does it do?
It rots.
It rots. We don't get old, we mold.
We mold. Okay, Dr. Young, we have a lot of questions people want to ask you.
That's your answer. That's how I would talk to that professor.
Awesome, thank you so much. There's a hand up in the back, right there, that gentleman.
Mike.
My issue is none of the doctors check for parasites. They disregard a whole medical science and they just go on with their fancy little, mumbo jumbos, and they never check for parasites. I even went to the VA asking to check for fungus in the blood because I had to check from another doctor.
They couldn't sell all their drugs if they told you it was
They
parasites.
literally told me we can't do that. There's no way we can do that. I go, you can do it. My other doctor did it. You can do it. And they told me we're not authorized to do it. They won't pay for it.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
When we tested the vials, we found that 5% of all the samples on the first generation of these vaccines contained toxic chemicals, contained parasites, parasite eggs, Trypanosoma cruzi parasites. Go look it up.
Are they injecting parasites in the
That's
vaccine?
exactly right. They are.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's really the answer. They're
So
injecting.
this is nothing new. They've been doing it.
However, your MDs are not taught in medical school that parasites exist in America. In fact, they told my patients for 20 years when I would find parasites was 80% of all autoimmune cases. And I would start treating them to get better when they'd go to their rheumatologist follow-ups every single time. They'd ask them, what are you doing since the last time you came here to do a follow-up? Anything changed? And then you go, yes, I'm doing this parasitic protocol with Dr. Artis. You know what every single MD in Dallas, Texas, and Tennessee said to my patients? This is not a joke. Every single time they said this. Do not listen to Dr. Artis. He's ridiculous. Parasites do not exist in America.
They're only in Africa.
That's what they say, and they repeat it back to you. Watch this, you ready? And then it does what? Oh my God. You know what your MD does? He repeats back to you what he learned in med school. Now, I want to ask you, you really believe this country is so great that there's a force field around the borders of America that when a person or animal walks through the border, there's a force field that scans the body and actually kills all the parasites. And then I would like, this is exactly my response to any patient who came in, they'd go like this, I don't know whether to trust you or to trust him. And this is going to answer your question. Ready? He just gave you a perfect common sense answer. You're going to destroy everybody's faith and idiocity or whatever it is with common sense. You ready? So this person would be standing in front of me wondering, do I trust the white coat guy who has an MD degree that tells him that it's better than the DC degree that I carry? And this is how simply I destroyed their faith in the white coat. I've never even said anything about that guy. I'd go like this. I have a question for you. Have you ever owned a dog or a cat in your life? Yes. What does your veterinarian treat that dog or cat for every time you take it in there? Parasite. Then I'd go like this. Has your dog or cat that you purchased and loved, did you ever have a dog or cat that was born in America? And I'd go, and they'd go, yeah. And I'd go, great. Did you ask your doctor when he said that, does he have a dog or cat that he's ever taken to a vet before in America? Because 100% of the damn animals are treated with ivermectin called HeartGuard to kill parasites. Which, by the way, if you go in any Banfield clinic, which is in every PetSmart in America, the largest franchise veterinarians in America, go pull the pamphlet off the wall that is titled Parasites in You, and then open it, and then you'll realize it's not the MDs that are like the problem. They're not lying to you. They had pathetic education. And they were withhold truths on purpose to make you sick and then tell you just need drugs to manage your symptoms and there's no cause and parasites don't exist. Open the pamphlet. In the pamphlet, it tells you the list of every known parasite that transfers from your dog and your cat to you. And you know what that person would do? Would never go back to their MD and go, well, I'm going to listen to you. That makes total sense. Okay, great. I didn't have to tell them anything about why that guy was wrong or show many papers. It's illogical. It's a dumbass statement. And then I tell these people, you should go back to your MD and say, you know what? I thought you were smarter than that. All I did was just repeat back to them something that would make sense to them, like the goldfish in the water example. And oh my God, life is actually that easy. You have to understand, You are all convinced that your diseases and your symptoms are complex. Do you want to know why you think they're complex and mysterious? Because they've never told you what causes any of your symptoms. And anybody who sees a specialist in medicine, I dare you to find a pamphlet and go to any association that is representative of your condition, and I want you to look up on their website, what is the known cause of that condition? Every single one of them says we do not know what causes it, and then there's no cure.
But we got a drug for you.
Would you take your car to a mechanic who says in their literature, we don't know how to fix a car, we don't know what's wrong with it? And would you pay them and keep showing up every month when they tell you, they go, you know, we haven't figured out in 113 years. The American Cancer Society started in 1910. In the last 3 years, we gave them $5 billion. Do you know what their mission statement is since 1910? To prevent and cure cancer? That's 113 years. Just the last 3 years, we gave them $5 billion. They don't want the cure. If they give you a cure, they'd miss out on a whole bunch of funding. Anyway, ask your doctor if drugs and vaccines are right for you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, question over here, young lady.
Comments about, obviously, our world is run, you know.
Mike.
Obviously, our world has puppet masters that run all the countries and all of the governments and all of the health agencies and everything else that we have to live with. And the eugenicists of the world have become eugenicists for a reason. How deep that rabbit hole has anyone really gone as far as figuring out why they want to kill us all slowly? And then with the nanos and all that they're putting in these shots, having a way to turn us off and just make us go away if they wish and when they wish.
Yeah, if you want to read, I actually have read like 100 books in the last 4 years that everybody sends me to try to make sense of this world I live in right now. Like, how is it that CMS.gov has a law they shared with all the hospitals that if they would just bill any 60-year-old or older and you give them remdesivir for 10 days, we will give that hospital a 20% add-on bonus for the entire hospital stay.
I'm a nursing home administrator, and I saw a lot of death.
Okay, so why is the government funding murder of your elderly? I had senators and Steve's with me in these state capitol buildings. The senators will look at me and go, why would the CMS do this? And I'd go, no, I'm going to ask you that. Why would our government fund to pump into the veins of 60-year-old or older Americans a drug proven to kill 53% of all people you give it to? Why would they do that? And the senators would go, it sounds like murder. And I'd go like this, look, y'all know I'm only 47.
Sounds like they don't want to pay Social Security.
I've been an adult for 27 years, and this is exactly my statement every time. Since I turned 20, I've listened to the radio and them talk about nonstop that there's going to be a problem when the baby boomers become of age for Social Security and Medicare, and they're going to like bankrupt those institutions, and immediately all of their countenance changed. I said, they're trying to cull the herd, man. Can't you tell? Now, if you want to know what's actually made the most sense to me, go read a book. There's only one book out of like 100 I've been told to read that only made sense on every aspect of what I see going on in America right now. Only one. And it was written by, no, it's actually Dr. John Coleman's book from 1995. It's called The Story of the Committee of 300. And if you want to know what's going on in the political landscape, what's happening at the southern border and the northern border of the United States right now, it's all in that book.
You can read an article.
It's called Conspirators' Hierarchy, The Story of the Committee 300. It answers every single question that all of you have about what's going on in the world today. And that was written 30 years ago.
Can I jump in? So I noticed some people that shouted out the Bible, and I'll tell you that one thing that got me involved, in addition to the truckers making it clear I didn't have to cover in my home anymore, is almost every public demonstration. So, 2 years ago we had the Commonwealth Games. You guys don't participate because you're not a Commonwealth country. That's like all the countries that were Britain and colonies of Britain. And they have, as part of the opening ceremony, they have people dressed as slaves pulling out the golden calf representing Baal. And you'll see that, you know, when CERN's opened, the Super Bowl the same year, I didn't watch the ceremonies this year, but in almost every major public ceremony, there is a satanic ritual. And I had to ask myself, well, why are they doing that? Because symbolism matters. You know, let's go. It matters. And so with COVID, I was just seeing evil time and time and time again, and all this representation. So I believe we're in a spiritual war. I believe we have to be on our knees and praying. And you know, and back to that first question, like, how do we tell people? First of all, stop being exhausted, because you know we've just gone through the first phase where you couldn't tell people, because we were in a military grade psyops, and you have to understand these people are victims, and so they're still in a cognitive dissonance, but you can't stop trying. Like we used to be afraid, and now we're tired, but we can't stop trying. But I'll tell you a success story, and I'm not just plugging the National Citizens Inquiry, but we had a family member, a close family member, who literally totally, you know, we were losing the relationship during COVID and they're having their kids phone us telling us to get vaccinated, and they're all concerned, and just the tension there. It was one of those relationships that were destroyed. And this person starts watching the National Citizens Inquiry, and then watches another day and another day. And, you know, after we were finished, having a conversation with my wife, and my wife's talking about how we may have to move to Mexico for safety reasons. And the person understood, and now that dialogue's there. There's something about, like, you can send, you know, a Dr. Malone video, or you can send a Stephen Kirsch video, and they won't watch it. But when they're sworn to tell the truth in this very formal setting, I mean, you watch, it's formal, it's like a court. And then they're questioned by lawyers, and then they're questioned by commissioners. There's something disarming about the format. And so, like I told you about Sheila Lewis, you send that to your friends and just say, oh my God, can you watch this and not cry? And it's not an anti-vax video, but it starts the conversation. So go to that site and watch the Sheila Lewis video, Day One in Ottawa, and just ask yourself, if I started sharing some of this, could it change things? But you have to figure out how to do it, and you have to be involved. This is an information war. Like, you know, I work on the natural health product front, but let me just tell you, you have to start getting creative. So, you know, when pharma started attacking natural health products in the late 80s in Canada, there was a group called Health Action Network Society. They couldn't get the mainstream media's attention on this issue. Didn't matter what they did. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Peace Arch between Vancouver and Seattle. It's right at the border. So they dressed up in like 19th century dress, you know, the big ball gowns that floof out and the tuxes with tails. And they had a formal tea party on a sunny day at the Peace Arch on the grass there. And nobody knew what was going on, and the media's going crazy, and all of a sudden they're in the news. It's just a matter about being creative. How the heck do we get this out there? And if you start praying about it and asking, how do we become creative, you will be amazed what you can do.
Thank you so much. Wait, first I wanted to give Steve, do you have anything else that you'd like to wrap up with? Because I'd like to hear from you.
Just on that, your question originally is there some evil force behind this, right? And I think the answer is that we haven't seen the smoking gun. I mean, there are some fingers of the DOD that created this the virus.
Bioweapon.
Right, and you know, but you know, is Gates really an evil person that he's doing this to kill people? You know, we could have an interesting discussion on that, because if he really wants to kill people, this is not the most efficient way to do that. What you'd want to do is create a vaccine which has a time bomb in it, and then everybody dies. You know, like, you know, if you really wanted to do this, there are other technologies that exist that are far more effective than this vaccine. And you know, you could say, oh, well, they did it this way because this way they could kill people undetected. But the people who are actually executing on this all believe that the thing is safe and effective. They believe that Fauci is God, that he's telling the truth. you know, that these people are just like how I was, you know, prior to my little wake-up call when I started seeing the reality wasn't matching the rhetoric. And a lot of people just never see the disconnect between the reality and the rhetoric. They just think, oh, I'm unlucky, right? And I know, for example, there's a guy who used to be the chief medical officer for a UCSF affiliated hospital, okay? And what happened to him is he got AFib after he got the shot. Then he got an operation to get better, and then they said, well, you should get another shot. So he got another shot, and he got AFib from that, okay? And he said, and still he's not woken up yet. His son, who is 20 years old, got the shot and died. He is still not woken up. He just thinks he's unlucky. He thinks he's an anecdote. And the thing is that all of these doctors are silenced because if they speak out, then they know they're going to get fired or they're going to have their credentials taken away. So nobody's speaking out. So everybody thinks that they're an anecdote and that it's not happening to anybody else because they're not hearing it from their peers, because their peers will not tell them because they're afraid of retribution. This is like this whole mass secret thing that nobody is talking to each other. When I ask doctors, hey, you know, I ask doctors all the time, what percent are red pilled? What percent of your doctors? And they say, I don't know, because we're not allowed to talk about it. And so this is why people don't see it. It's because we've created this fear and intimidation factor if you talk about this stuff and go against the narrative. And that's what propels this. And so it's this perfect storm that's perpetuating this. And until somebody breaks this, where you have a hospital or big, you know, very big organization where all the doctors come out and say, we're not going to stand for this anymore, that's when things will start to break down. But everybody's afraid to do that because they don't want to be the one who gets fired.
They have a mortgage to pay. They have kids to put. Be
Well, we're gonna.
Wait, hang on. Let me wrap this up. Lee, do you have anything else that you'd like to say before this is over?
Not really. To the question that was just asked, we know it's happening. I'm not sure that we're ever going to really figure out the why, because the people who are doing it are not wired like we are. And there are sadists in the world, and there are obedient people in the world. The obedient people are 65.5%, according to Stanley Milgram's Yale University trial, right? Who will kill their neighbor when a white lab coat asks them to, 1961. Google the Milgram trials if you're not familiar. And so, I mean, I look at a cat playing with a mouse. Is he a sadist? Or is he enjoying the game? I think what we need to do is recognize simply that it is, and that we may never know the motivation as to why, because you and I are incapable of comprehending both the level of evil of the people who are intentionally doing it, which may be Gates and Soros, or maybe they're just deluded, who knows, along with the obedience of the people who are not at a Conscious Life Expo. We're all the black sheep, but we are the ones that always win the war. We are the ones that always win the war, and if we continue to speak our truth, the obedient wake up, and the evil only represent about 0 to 10 or 15, 20% at most of the population. There are more of us than them, and we will get her done. We just need to continue to be courageous and speak out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, you guys, I told you at the beginning we wouldn't have enough time for everybody to say everything they needed. If you would like to talk to the speakers, they're signing books in the back of the room. I want to thank Donna Schumann again for making this happen with me. And you're my angel in the earth suit.
And Brandy.
And Brandy.
Stand up, Brandy.
Where's Brandy? Thank
we
you,
all put
Brandy.
this together with our hearts and our souls.
Brandy. And we want to thank Robert Quicksilver again for letting us do it here at Conscious Life Expo.
And Kelly. I want to thank our moderator, Kelly. Dr. Young, Dr. Artist, Lee Dundas, Steve Kirsch, Sean Buckley. I keep wanting to call you doctor, but he's a lawyer. Thank you
And
all
our
for
special
coming.
guest, Tracy Schroeder.
And yes, Tracy. We're going to go to the back of the room, and I thank you all for coming. And we love you. We love you for showing up and supporting us.